Throws in the flat. Pass is complete for Clayton. First down and then some. Goodbye, Mark Clayton. To the 10, to the 5. Touchdown, Oklahoma. Incredible.
This is 365 Sports.
Motion by Oliver. Lucky will go the other way on the option. Pulls it down. Touchdown, Aggies.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
McNabb, straight back. Left side, he's all alone. It's a touchdown. Conrad. A defensive breakdown, and Conrad was all alone. He goes into the end zone for the second touchdown. Nobody was over there.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Maurice Clarett is the tailback, or the single back. He's got it. He's got a touchdown.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Hello, end zone. Won't catch it. LaMichael James, and ladies and gentlemen, right now, this young man is a Heisman Trophy candidate.
Now, here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go. 365 Sports as we start this next to the last week in the month of April. The NFL draft is on Thursday. A lot to get to today. We have Jim Williams, one of the favorite guests we've ever had, media columnist and consultant. He'll join us today along with Mitch Harper, who covers recruiting for BYU. Craig's off the radar. Paul's top 5. John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist, covers the NFL for us today as well. A lot of things to get to, including right off the top, Andrew Valade, the poll. Who stands out as the top defensive lineman in the 2025 draft? Mason Graham, Michigan. Mikael Williams, Georgia. Walter Nolan, Ole Miss. Kenneth Grant, Michigan. I would say it all just depends what you need, but Mason Graham seems to be, is he the highest rated? I know Williams is a disruptive player. Nolan and Grant both are awfully good.
My two that I would rate top would be Mason Graham and Walter Nolan. I think
Walter Nolan, he's going to probably go in the later part of the first round. And I think there'll be a lot of years where he might go a little bit higher. But Mason Graham, I think, is the best one at defensive tackle. But this is at least at all the way through. There's a bunch of really good guys at that position, that you could have later on. One I like maybe late day 2, early day 3 is Ty Robinson from Nebraska.
Yeah, he's a guy that's got a lot of attention. Yeah, he's motor.
Yeah, he's got he's not again, Walter Nolan's like a freak athlete for his size. Same with Mason Graham. Ty Robinson's just a guy you plug in and you're like, all right, go hurt a guy. And he's like, I got you. No problem. And actually, in my mock draft, you'll see tomorrow where I have Walter Nolan going.
All right, Craig, your thoughts about any of them in particular? I thought Mason Graham, I don't know who's going to go first, but you would be happy to get any of them. There'll be another poll. Andrew will put that up. It's in the chat room. Thank you, those of you who are watching. YouTube 365 Sports, also on Twitter at 365 Sports YT. TCU is headed to Dublin, Ireland, not this summer. That's K-State, Iowa State with Farmageddon, but they will play North Carolina in the opening game. Dublin, Ireland. The first year was Northwestern, who beat Nebraska. Then Georgia Tech beat Florida State. This year, K-State, Iowa State. Next year, the Frogs will get North Carolina. There was a little bit of some were like, oh, my God, why would we want to give up a home game? The president of TCU said they will still have 7 home games in 2026 on top of playing this game overseas in Ireland.
Don't do it, TCU. Don't do it. You'll only wind up sad. Yeah. You and I know that.
Bad experience.
I guess Notre Dame was in there too. Notre Dame played somebody over there in Ireland as well.
Navy.
Notre Dame played Navy over there.
That might have been the first one. Yeah.
And so I think it's a really cool experience for the players. I never want FSU to go back. But I say that jokingly, but yeah, it's pretty awesome. The Big 12 now will have this showcase game this year and next year. The Big 12 and ACC will get a showcase game in Ireland, which is really, really good. Really, really good. So,
yeah, I think it's a cool experience for the fans that have been out there. They seem to have enjoyed themselves, and it's a unique way to open the season, puts a little spotlight on you that you might not otherwise have. I think TCU, North Carolina, coming up this year, kick off the season, ought to be a really interesting game, but to have that return trip and be overseas is, it's a choice. I know it's not one that everybody necessarily loves, but if they're going to have 7 home games, you add this on top of that, then I could see the justification, and it's also a great opponent. So, I think it's a cool opportunity, and that's a nice game that will have a lot of eyes on it that it might not otherwise have. But, their game with North Carolina this year, it's going to be a Monday game. It's a primetime game. It's on that first weekend. So scheduling that out when they did, I don't know if they thought they'd get as many eyeballs on those 2 series games that they signed up for. But turns out there's going to be, quite a stage for both those contests. People will be eager to see Belichick in year 1, and then let's take betting odds of where he is in year 2 and whether he's trekking on over to Ireland. I assume he will be, but you never know how it will all work. But this has, in some ways, these last couple of years become a Big 12 staple with Farmageddon starting the season over there, which is really interesting. So, cool for TCU, cool for North Carolina, and interested to see what the actual buildup for that game is when the time comes.
When you go to the website for the game, you'll also see that next year Pitt and Wisconsin are scheduled to play in Dublin, Ireland.
They get pretty good games. I mean, they're not like the blockbuster, because obviously you're not going to put that in Ireland, but they get good games considering. It's not like it's, the lowest of the totem poles are out there playing. I think they get some notable teams that have good fan bases. Obviously, it makes sense to get good fan bases because you need them to travel all the way to Ireland to watch your game. But yeah, TCU says they'll still have 7 home games. By my count, they've still got a game to fill because they play North Carolina and they play Arkansas State. And then based on what we know about their Big 12 schedule, that only adds up to 6. So they'll need to add a home non-con game, I'd imagine, since they're going to Ireland. That could very well fall in line with somebody that is lower on the totem pole just to make up for the fact they went to Europe to play an ACC team. But, yeah, I don't know where the Big 12 ACC chatter will be at that point 2 years from now. But that will, be a game if that's still in focus, wherever North Carolina finds themselves in TCU as well. That could be a part of a little smack talk, like it will be this year.
All right, so we will discuss a little bit of the portal, back and forth, kind of a trade player to be named later. Joey Aguilar, yesterday late, is the one who decided he would be moving on, of course, from UCLA to Tennessee. Now, he now swaps places. Chris Lowe, ESPN, reporting he got about $1.2 million, which is slightly less, of course, about maybe half of what Nico was going to get in his last year or this year with Tennessee, who's now at UCLA. So that is official. Tennessee gets their quarterback, or at least they hope they do, as those two in a player to be named later trade, Tennessee and UCLA. Now, one other note about this is Madden Iamaleava, he's moving back home. He's going to UCLA after being at Arkansas. And this is going to string something together. We'll get to this in what else is going on here. But your thoughts, guys, we're going to hear from Sam Pittman on Iamaleava, the younger one, Madden. But your thoughts about this was pretty much, you could see this happening, and it's happened.
Yeah, look, good for Joey Aguilar to trade up like that. And look, he might have wound up at Tennessee in the first place had they've been in the transfer portal the first time around in the winter. But yeah, I mean, he's a guy who's got some, he's Sun Belt Offensive Player of the Year at one point in his career. He's stepping into a team that's really good, and I like it. I wonder if we do get to a day where, because of collective bargaining and all this, that there are just straight up trades in college football. It's a little harder to do than in the pros, but that would be better than this.
Would it?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
I just asked that, like, really would it be? Because, how are you going to do that? Are you going to say we're going to give you a draft pick later on? I mean, how would that work?
I mean, I guess you could, I don't know. I'm just thinking player for player kind of
trades.
I
think it's an intriguing idea, but when I hear about it, I'm just like, well, how would you do that? It's
really hard because you don't have, you can't give them a scholarship. You can't.
Who necessarily wants each other's players?
Yeah.
Would you rather just go get the guy from another school and just get him rather than, you have to give something up for it? So it sounds fun and unique, but I don't think I'm on board right now with the let's make trading players a regular thing. This just so happened to work out that way. That's all that happened. It wasn't like this was pre-orchestrated and this was some grand plan. It was just simple dumb luck that Joey Aguilar had already gone to UCLA, and then that's where Nico decides to turn his attention when Tennessee doesn't meet his demands. So I see where people are coming from, though. I just think it's like relegation. It's just a bit more complicated than just saying, you move up and down every year. Okay, explain that to your recruits, explain that to your fundraisers, explain that to everybody else that would have to worry about jumping down a level and then jumping back up a level and then staying there for a couple of years and then moving back down when you don't win enough games. It's a bit more complicated, but it is funny how this all worked out. So good on Tennessee. I think given the circumstances, they made out about as well as you could have. They got a solid player. I don't know if he's as good as Nico when all's said and done, but I don't think we've seen the best of Nico either. So they'll go out this fall and perform, and we'll see where Tennessee ends up and where UCLA ends up, and then there will be comparisons made. That we do know. Yes, there will be massive comparisons made, so I'm interested to see where all that falls, but definitely worked out in the most unique of ways that it possibly could have. And then to add, Nico's brother jumping into the portal, they're just pissing off the entire SEC, aren't they? They're just raising all of the Southeast, basically. I mean, it makes sense. And you know who the next quarterback's going to be after Nico leaves, or at least who they plan on the next quarterback being. So not all that surprising that he'd want to go join up with his brother. And UCLA is just completely leaning into being the bad guy, even though it's not really anything that they've done illegally or anything like that. But again, another day where UCLA football is getting a massive amount of attention that they haven't been getting for quite some time. So does it turn into wins? That will be the key.
All right. So we've discussed players who have signed NIL and then moved on and signed with somebody else by the end of the day. And I guess there's nothing illegal about it, but the school would have to then take the player and or the agent or whoever to court, right? They would have to sue them. And there are thoughts that some players, that some schools might do that, and there's thought that some schools don't want to bother with it. Well, Arkansas, let's go this first. This was Sam Pittman on Madden Iamaleava after spring drills. Listen to how upbeat he was about the young man who's now headed to UCLA.
Done really well, especially coming off his, he didn't play his senior year. Very mature, well coached out of high school. But yeah, I think he's made a ton of improvement. And I think you'll see that throughout the rest of the spring and then, the summer and fall camp.
So that's Sam Pittman. That was when he thought that he would be, of course, throughout the spring and summer through workouts and then eventually playing for Arkansas this fall. That's not the case. Now, Arkansas Director of Athletics, Hunter Yurachek, put this out earlier this afternoon, speaking with leadership from Arkansas Edge, that's their NIL collective, expressed my support in their pursuit to enforce their rights under any agreement violated by our student athletes moving forward. In other words, if somebody, they can go after them if they feel like they should or can, then he will support them in doing that. And you would think, coming after what Madden Iamaleava is leaving, that maybe there is some sort of contract there. So that's Arkansas saying that we might fight this a little bit.
Well, I think there definitely is. That's why they're talking about it. Yeah. I mean, there's no other reason to just come out and say that if it wasn't based on Madden Iamaleava leaving. So, yeah,
no, it's the timing's perfect. Yeah,
I mean, clearly that's what he's talking about is Madden Iamaleava. So I think, I don't know how much the young man was going to play this year. Taylor Green's a starting quarterback at Arkansas, and then you've got others on the depth chart, but obviously a young player that you were excited about and had some good things to say. So that's unfortunate for Arkansas fans who probably had to have some inkling that they could get a little bit of disturbance in the force when the whole Nico situation was playing out. And you're like, okay, well, what kind of an effect could this have on his brother and them all returning back to the West Coast? And so sure enough, here you are. But I like that instead of just, pouting about it, Arkansas is going on the offensive. And quite frankly, what's taken so long? Where are the contracts with terms to actually enforce some of these things? I mean, that's been the biggest part of the problem is there's nothing to enforce. There's nothing you can do. And I've wondered the entire time, how are these guys signing all these contracts that seem to not have anything that you have to uphold in them whatsoever? Like you hear about, they've got obligations, like they've got to go to an autograph signing or they've got to do this and do that. And we don't really hear much else about that. But how can you just pick up without having even ever played in a game and just leave with no repercussions? Like that doesn't happen in a lot of other jobs.
Signed contract, yeah.
That doesn't happen in any pro sport. So I've been wondering of when we were going to get to a point where contracts actually meant something because they've meant absolutely little to nothing up to this stage. So I'm all for this. I'm all for Arkansas. I'm not anti-player, but I do think there's got to be something to these contracts, or why are we even using contracts? So this is a long time coming. I am very curious to see how this now goes. And I do think it would be for the better of the sport if you could enforce these things and not hold the player down and they can't leave Fayetteville. But hey, man, if we paid you $500,000 and you were here for 6 months, we want $350,000 back or something like a payout
based
for a coach.
Based on the timeline of when the end date would be.
Whatever that would
absolutely.
be. I'm not math smart enough to do that off the top of my head, but no different than a coach's buyout. I think that just makes logical sense, especially if you want to go, it's a pro sport now. It's a pro sport now. It's a semi-pro sport now. Whatever it is. Yeah, so business is involved. Business is a big part of this business at this point, and contracts need to mean something. So I'm all for Arkansas pursuing what they can to recoup what they can.
I've had a collective tell me that they wish the university in which they are, entrenched with, that wish that they would sue for an NIL agreement that was signed and then left. So maybe that's starting to simmer a little bit. There's Hunter Yurachek on record as saying that. Whether that leads to anything, Paul, you were going to say something else. I don't know.
I think, and here's the thing, it's pretty cut and dry what you can go after these guys for. If they come to your school and just suck, you can't really do anything about that. Nope. That's just the cost of doing business. If you've,
you can push them back in the portal, you can nudge them, but you can't really do much else.
Do anything about to recoup the money you paid them. If you went out and got them Look, there's a bunch of teams last year that went out and got a bunch of guys in the portal and weren't good, and that money's just gone. They set it on fire, essentially. But if you're like Madden Iamaleava and made a deal at the 11th hour to go to Arkansas instead of UCLA, which it likely included some upfront money, you should have to pay that upfront money back because all you did was practice. You didn't play in games. You did nothing.
If the language is in the contract.
Yeah, if the language is the contract. Yeah. You did nothing in which was going to help profit the school or the collective in that regard.
If it also is dependent on the timeline, if it was for the fall, and then you do this in the spring, I don't know if the agreements go from one semester to the next, which is a full year or what.
Well, in some of the stories written, I mean, there's the money facts on Joey Aguilar. He made $200,000 so far at UCLA. He signed whatever the total amount of the deal was. Thamel said he had $1.2 million less, so I guess this deal was for like 1.5, and then he's got to get this new deal at Tennessee. But okay, you made your $200,000. How does that work then if you're the collectives? I mean, I don't think you try to get that back, but what is the language of what was left on there and how does all that work? That's what they need to clear up.
If UCLA says, no, you can't leave without paying us back, then Tennessee might want to call UCLA.
Yeah, that's where it gets all very confusing, but that's for the lawyers to sink their teeth into. But yeah, I mean, if you've received a certain amount of money and there was an agreement or a language in that contract that said that, hey, if you're not here by a certain date, you have to recoup this amount or whatever upfront you got paid, then they need to enforce that. That needs to be, and if that language isn't in these contracts, then what the hell are these schools doing?
Yeah,
I mean, to not have,
they're learning too.
Huh?
They're
learning too, but you would just assume, and this is the thing that's crazy about college sports, is you'd assume these universities are smart. You assume that like they've got all these smart people under their roof, and sometimes they're the dumbest ones. It's amazing, but yeah, the schools are learning alongside as well. But yeah, you would think there would be some type of language put in there, and if not, then I think everybody's had enough wake-up calls at this point to go like, hey, we probably need some clauses in there that recoup some of our money if a guy decides to transfer before he's even made a semester.
That's one of those things where everybody, presidents or athletic directors or whoever, they start texting people within the school umbrella. Hey, by the way, have we done this? Have we protected ourselves? I'm sure that most collectives have, but this will be fun to. I don't know if it's funny. I hate it. I don't like that we're talking about legal terms, but at the same time, it's part of what it is right now. UCLA coach Deshaun Foster noted today that Iamaleava has to finish first his grades and his degree, at least for what this is a semester at Tennessee, before joining UCLA this summer. To be eligible, transfers have to finish classes. The same goes for Aguilar, who is, of course, UCLA in the quarter system. Their final exams are June 9th through the 13th. Maybe that can be done online. I saw a couple of responses from those who covered UCLA that Nico was in L.A., not surprisingly, and that maybe Aguilar can also do online classes, but he would not otherwise be on campus at Tennessee if he has to stay on campus in L.A. until early to mid-June.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that'll work. Maybe go on the Joe Burrow plan of like you just jump on campus when it's game day, basically, and you take all
you should be ashamed of yourself.
Hey, get an natty.
I mean, it was well known. He took all online classes at LSU. That was out there. He talked about how he's like not even around the students basically, except for during I guess bar tripping and Saturdays. I mean,
smoking cigars. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know how all that works now if you're in the middle of a semester, but I'm sure they'll get all that figured out. I think that's probably the least of their worries, but it's something you do have to take into consideration. But Deshaun Foster seems fired up, and I don't know why he wouldn't. I mean, he had a good quarterback, in place there with Aguilar, but it does feel like they potentially upgraded. We'll see, though. I mean, that's going to be the story. Again, it's going to be the comparison of those two players, those two programs, and what 2025 looks like.
My concern was, okay, for 2025, and you think about the UCLA roster, and I'm sure they wish they could have done this earlier, but if Nico had gone there in the winter, then you might see players like following him there. Mm-hmm. But considering that you don't have that much of a window here, and a lot of guys have already decided where they're going to go, especially based on how he did it, they can't really build that much up around him either to
well,
improve.
The portal's open through the rest of the week.
Open for the rest of the week, but I think to get those other caliber players that are going to make him better, I don't think they can really do that all the way around. And they might have Nico for 1 year, and then Madden's going to be the quarterback in a year. If it goes well, if it doesn't go well, or well enough, then they might have him for 2 years before he's a pro, but he's draft eligible next year.
Well, let's face it, too. There's a lot of beer goggles going on with the transfer portal.
Yeah.
There's a lot of dudes that are picking the girl at like 1 a.m. as the bar's about to close, acting like it's a 10 5-star offensive lineman, and it's really like a 3-star offensive lineman at best. But we're going crazy because that's who's out there in the portal.
Right.
That's basically what happens
Supply
around
and
this
demand,
time.
baby.
You're like, yeah, let's go load up on who, like with who. And just because you get guys and it says wide receiver next to their name doesn't mean they're going to be a great wide receiver. And at this point, if they're ranked highly in the available, doesn't mean they're necessarily great. It means that's just who's out there still at this point. So, yeah, there's not a lot of great options. All the best shopping was done back during Christmas time. So I don't know how much they can really build out. Now, then again, like, who could maybe be a surprise, but you're right. The timing of it's not great if you wanted to really go all for it, because he's not going to be there past next year, Paul, like you're saying. I mean, I think he's made that clear in the comments that have come out. The plan when he was at Tennessee was to go pro after next year. So that's where his eyes are. And we'll see if that comes back to hurt them, not being able to really pad the team out, but they're taking a gamble and rolling with it. And it certainly has us talking way more about UCLA than we otherwise would be.
All right. Scott Frost today at UCF. They're, of course, going through their spring football like most are. Some have wrapped it up. BYU coach Kalani Sitake will join us tomorrow, by the way, here on 365 Sports. But he was after practice or was talking to the media. I don't know if it's after or before practice. The question initially is about the story with Tennessee, UCLA, the quarterback, and all that. Frost handled this well. You'll hear the question and then his follow-up on what it's like to deal with these NIL negotiations. Here's Scott Frost.
Never really want to comment on anybody else's program or any other kids. I don't have all the details on that. All I will say is that, it's easy to get the wrong people in your ear sometimes and get bad advice and not necessarily even talking about that situation. I just think in general there's people in some of these players' ear that don't always have best interests in mind, and you have a tendency in life to think grass is always greener somewhere else, and usually it's not. And when you're 18, 19, 20 years old, you think money's everything, and it's not. Happiness and success are way more important than that, and I've learned that personally. I'm happy here and happy to be back here, and I think sometimes decisions are made for the wrong reasons, but that's life, and hopefully we can try to educate guys too as much as we can, and mentor them as much as we can to help them make good decisions.
They get a degree in NIL, maybe a class that the athletes will take. That we sometimes have laughed about some of what they take to get a degree, but there might be one that's very obviously finance and all that other stuff. By the way,
I would imagine business degrees are as popular as ever for
absolutely,
for athletes.
Absolutely, and important. He then was asked about dealing with NIL negotiations himself as a coach, whatever else, and here's his response on how frustrating it can be.
I think anybody's really happy with the situation we're in now, except maybe the institutions that have just unlimited money to spend and they want to keep that advantage. If people really knew what went on, it's a mess. It's constant negotiation, and it's a bidding war for every single player, whether they're in the portal or not. That's the reality, whether people want to admit it or not. And it's a sad state if a sport as beautiful as college football is won by the people with the richest boosters. And that's kind of where we are right now. But hopefully they're trying to put some guardrails around it, and I think it would make the game a better game if there were at least some restrictions and rules in place.
Scott Frost, UCF football coach, on some of the stuff we've talked about, which seems like it is daily.
I think the most interesting thing he said, in my opinion, was kind of admitting, he was like, yeah, I've made the mistakes. The grass isn't always greener on the other side, or chasing money. which he did in Nebraska. Now, I don't blame him for that. Would be my dream job if I was Scott Frost too, seeing as that's my alma mater and I was there during the gloriest of glory days there. But for him professionally, UCF at the time was the perfect fit, and he left. But you don't, like you said, hindsight's 20/20. But it's interesting to hear him say that.
Yeah, I mean, he left at basically the tail end of the glory days. I mean, there was another championship appearance 4 years later, and it was the smacking of their heads bouncing off the pavement against the 2001 Miami Hurricanes, right? So that was that the end of the glory days, 2001?
Yeah, because it was ended like about a month before that when Colorado beat the shit out of them in that game, 62-36.
But so Frost was like their last golden
97.
moments.
He won the national title.
That was their last natty.
Yeah.
So that was
they were good for the next 3 or 4 years, but 2000, getting hammered by Colorado, Miami ended anything.
Yeah, the mystique ended at that point. Yeah. So he was the last national championship quarterback there. But yeah, I mean, I understood his decision to leave Orlando as good as he had it. And so I think if you're the players and you know enough about your coach, then you maybe listen to him a little bit deeper than you otherwise would, because he's not just, somebody out there just saying it willy-nilly. Like, he actually is like, no, read the articles, pal. I've been dragged through the mud. I've had my scandalous kind of moments and my, just
falling just flat on his
face plants, and I mean, whatever else. He's been through it, and now he's back where apparently he was pretty happy the first time with lessons learned, and I think that should benefit UCF as much off the field. We'll see how much on the field. I'm excited to cover him this year. Mm-hmm. I'm excited to see just a different Scott Frost, and if he can bring some of that magic back. But yeah, I mean, he would know, and then again, there are a lot of people in these young men and women's ears. Now, I do think there comes a point where if it's 18, 19, then that's one thing. When we start getting into some of these 21, 22-year-olds, like, better at that point. Like, you're not a child anymore at that point. You're still young, but I think we do need to give them more credit than they're all just college kids, and they don't know any better. And, there's a lot of them that they're like grown-ass men now. Like, they got families. They know better. Just because they're young doesn't mean they're foolish. But I understand what he's saying.
Conundrum, like I care what $1 million head coach is frustrated. Laugh out loud, shut the blank up, Frost, and stop crying. I did mention that he actually admitted that he was one that chased the money.
Yeah.
Went back to his home. Did not work out. Incredible disappointment. Now back in it, he had to kind of just surfed around football, even NFL camps too. But Conundrum, I don't know if what I heard from him was not him complaining about really anybody getting the money, but maybe the system. But I appreciate your feedback on that.
No, I mean, look, here's with,
and believe me, I'm not defending him because of any connection to Nebraska. That was what he was saying today.
I was on the Sons of UCF podcast last week, and they asked me what I thought about Scott Frost. And one of the things I said is that, now that he's not chasing anything else. Like, he's gone and chased that. He knows that he wants to be there. So knowing that he's not like thinking about the next thing anymore, because the next thing ended poorly for him, really badly, and really, I'm sure scarred him personally and professionally for a couple years now, that he's back there in Orlando. You're going to get a guy who's not worried about, like, oh, what if this job comes open, or what if that, or, Nebraska's not calling him back. So he's going to be totally invested in Orlando. And I think that's a good thing going forward. And
his head is clear.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it will stay that way, but his head is clear.
He's just got to,
I mean, I understand where Conundrum's coming from. I don't know if it's disagreeing or not, but I just look at it differently. I don't think he's crying. I think he's just answering a question. And he's saying the same thing that Nick Saban has said, and the same thing that Kirby Smart has said, and the same thing that, like, a lot of guys who win a lot of games have said. They're all saying the same things we're saying on this show and every other college football show, of like, there needs to be guardrails, and this is just crazy. And so I don't think he's out of pocket any more than anybody else who's saying the same things. I think they're trying to give as many warning signs as possible. And trust me, I know there's coaches out there acting like, Kirby Smart's been out there on a couple of occasions, and you're just like, come on, dude. Like, you've got it better than anybody. I roll at you complaining too much. So I get that. But I also don't think that anytime you're just not agreeing with something that you're crying about it. Like, that's very much an online thing of you just disagree. Oh, why are you crying? This is very, I don't know. I disagree with something. So I don't think he was crying. We just, I guess, heard that differently. But I do understand where you're coming from.
A lot of things can be taken out of context anytime there's a text, a message board, or even, believe me, this show.
No,
by the way,
the coaches aren't innocent in this. They're not poor and woe is me. And I don't buy into that all the time. But I don't think he was really pouting that much right there.
Katie Rader, good point. He goes, he actually moved up after his failure at Nebraska, because UCF was not a part of a power conference. When he left UCF, of course, now they're a part of the Big 12. The college football playoff, the dates, I'll forget this by the time I finish the story, but at least the dates are now set. The bowl games are now set. The playoff quarterfinals will be the Cotton Bowl, the Capital One Bowl, the Rose Bowl, and also the All-State Sugar Bowl. Those games will be played either on New Year's Eve, that first one, and then the other one's on New Year's Day. Then you go a week later, almost a week later, and then you get back to the middle of January of the 19th. The championship game will be played in, is that Miami, I think. I think that's where the game will be played, in Miami.
Oh, look, they're playing a game on a Friday night. I thought Friday night was bad.
Dude, they're playing a game on every night but Tuesday and Saturday.
Yeah. So,
good for them. Grab some of those days back.
Yeah, but I mean, like, when we heard Friday night was bad, and then they're going to be on Monday night, the 19th. Look, if they're going to be on Monday night, I know I'm never going to win that battle. I still think they need to move this up all about a week. And even if they add, it still needs to, January 12th would be the day that, you should end it at the latest.
I think you could move it back 10 days, 12 days, and I would be happy with that.
I think you need to do that. I think it would be way better. Look, you're that 0 week in college football now, if you just moved everybody up to that, I think you'd be fine. Also gives you a bit of a lead on the NFL starting. Yeah. I think
you need as much of a lead on that.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. You do. Right now, it's only about 5 days. From the real kickoff of the college football season with everybody, and then the NFL on that Thursday.
So there's the schedule, Craig.
Yeah, I don't think Conundrum and I agreed on Scott Frost crying, but I think we can probably agree there's a bunch of people crying about the Rose Bowl kickoff time being moved, because that was so sacred, and the sunsets and everything else. And so they're bumping the Rose Bowl kickoff time by an hour and moving it back. So
it is still on the first. They, by God, got that.
Yeah, I mean, they still got some of their way, but they didn't get all of what they wanted. And I'm glad to see that, because as much as that might be great tradition and everything, it's like a bowl doesn't need to be holding the other event, the rest of the event hostage and getting their way versus the others necessarily, no matter how much tradition you have.
And they have kind of had to take it a little bit, a little humble pie in some ways.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's notable on here at the kickoff is jumping up an hour. So that was obviously widely talked about, but the lack of Saturday games is just very interesting for a sport that's based all around Saturdays, although I understand why they're doing that. I'm with y'all. I mean, the timing on some of these, as far as the season lasting as long as it did, I know that was even for the most hardcore college football fans. By the end of last year, it was starting to, I guess, maybe drag on for some people. So if you could move it up a little bit to where it doesn't feel like it's suddenly a 10-month-long sport, that would be great. But I guess we're not quite there yet in terms of those types of changes. And in general, I mean, outside of the Rose Bowl kickoff time and, the timing of it all, over the course of those few weeks, I mean, it looks freaking sexy. I mean, give me college football playoff games. The rabbit's out of the hat. I don't want more. I'm not Mike Leach advocating for full-blown March Madness, but I really enjoyed last year, despite the complaining and the hand-wringing over the first round, which quickly reversed by the next round. And I know this thing's constantly going to be getting tweaked, but I think just the college football playoff, the way it was designed, it's not perfect, but I loved the totality of it all, even if it did feel by the end that it was kind of dragging along.
Yeah, I agree. It was cool to see that, though. I was like, okay, how much do we discuss this? Well, it's the championship part. We do discuss it. We put it up there. We'll have other stories. By the way, I did find this out. The first college football game that was ever played in Dublin, Ireland, going back to that opening deal, was 1988. So there have been some other games leading up until they've been on a run since Northwestern, Nebraska, in 2022.
My final thought on it is I hate the Monday night national championship game. I know we're going to have a TV guy here in a second. We've had other TV guys explain why Friday nights are absolutely terrible for broadcast. They want to get the biggest audience they can. That's why the TV networks actually do run college football. But I just hate the Monday night game. I think it takes away so much. I think Friday would be so much better. I think, there's not a lot of other options outside of that. Saturday conflicts with the NFL, obviously. You don't want to do that. Sunday as well. Friday would be freaking awesome and lead you into the weekend. But instead, we get Monday night, and I get why, but I don't like it.
Here's the thing. I wonder, I know that, there is years of research, and Bob Thompson told us this, about how Friday's a wasteland. I don't think college football is a sport that pulls in the casuals all that much like the NFL does, because there's all the things around it that the NFL has they don't have.
Fantasy football
and all that stuff. So I think that if you're a college football fan on a Friday night, that's one Friday night out of your life that you're going to stay home and watch the game
with no high school no longer being played.
There's nothing competing with it. But Monday night after the NFL playoffs start, it just feels like such a dud. It's where you could be on Friday night and then help lead into a football weekend and own Friday night. I don't know,
they do in basketball.
Yeah, and look,
but there's not the
it's
NFL.
An afterthought compared to the playoff. You get the 2 days of all these games, and then you go, oh yeah, the national championships tonight, and it's a Monday, and I just got off work, and cool, and then it's Tuesday, and they're talking about the NFL playoffs on most radio and TV stations and podcasts, and so I don't think it does them a whole lot of good playing on Monday outside of whatever TV rating they think they pop.
Here's what I do know: when I was a kid, on Friday nights they had some of the highest rated television shows in history in TGIF, and none of them were classically good. I mean, they were fine, but nobody's walking around talking about how Family Matters changed the world.
No. That's the oldest you've ever sounded.
Yeah. Well, you're starting to.
But I'm telling you, look, Friday night used to work. Let's bring it back. You know what? Why not Urkel announce the starting lineups?
Garrett, I see you. I do. Jim Williams is next. But why not at least try it once? And if you promote it well enough, if you have the right teams in it, and you build it up right, then maybe you could latch on to Friday. We'll hear from Jim Williams on that, but you're right. Bob Thompson also said that's like a graveyard. When we come back, Jim Williams, media columnist and consultant, we do appreciate your time today. Emery Winter and Garrett Ross, Andrew Valade, who's got those polls that he's put up. Make sure you're a part of that. This is 365 Sports.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Right now at Berg Collision Ford, we're bringing you an offer that's as big as America. Employee pricing for everyone. You pay what they pay. That means you drive home a new Ford F-150, Bronco Sport, Expedition, Super Duty. From America, for America. Employee pricing for everyone at BK Ford. Looking to sell your vehicle? Get top dollar for yours today. Don't miss out. Employee pricing is available for a limited time. Visit us anytime at bkford.com. Experience better at BK Ford.
I'll never get used to this.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
It has been far too long. There he is. Look at him in his master control behind him. The beautiful background that Jim Williams, media consultant, columnist, and much more joins us on 365 Sports. First, Jim, how you been? How you doing?
I've been well, thank you, guys. I had a little bit of an issue with AFib, but I'm good now, and all is good. And I got to tell you, I am with the rest of you. Friday night, with all due respect to my buddy Bob Thompson, would be the perfect night to put a national championship football game. I've heard all this stuff about Monday night. Monday night is not a college night. Put it on Friday night and you get numbers.
Jim, it's not. And here's the other thing that's kind of contradictory to that. They're pushing games to Friday night all through the regular season anyway, and there's a playoff game on Friday night.
Right. So why not? And the part, I know it was Craig. Was it Craig that said it? Maybe you, Paul, that said that what happens is you lose the water cooler stuff, right? The moment the game's over on Monday night, you're into, well, what's going to happen, next week with the AFC and NFC championship games.
Well, okay. Yeah. Why not, Jim? That's my whole point. I mean, maybe it is just a graveyard, but why not at least try it? If the numbers aren't great, well, you're still going to get numbers. It's just not, maybe they lose.
How do we know it's not going to be good?
Well, we don't. We don't.
And
the NFL used to always be on just Sundays, and they did Mondays, and they said Sunday nights. Now they're all basically every day. Hell, if they could be, they'd be on Tuesday.
Well, look at this, guys. Everybody said Thursday night was a killer night, okay, on television. I mean, massive numbers. Yet the NFL decided to go on Thursday night. And they went up against Young Sheldon, and they went up against a number of different things over the years. And they didn't, nobody seemed to blink at those eyeballs that they got.
No, Jim, that's true. What do you think? What do you think it's going to take media-wise for them to shake things up, especially with the next iteration of this contract coming in a year of what the playoff is going to be?
I don't know. I think part of the problem is we've got guys who have been in this business and have not progressed at all. I'm not talking about Bob. Bob, you're fine. But they don't understand the audience any longer. They've lost that. They're taking a traditional thought process and using it in a world that no longer exists. I mean, prime time is whatever time the three of you and I decided is. If I want to watch, Mobland tonight and I can't get to it until 7:45, or I can't get to it until, I want to do it while I'm eating dinner, I can do that. Okay. The only appointment television anymore is sports and news. That's it. You can't apply old school thoughts and processes to new media. It does not work. It's why some of these things are failing. 8 o'clock at night on a Friday night, or 9 o'clock if you want to push it to that, it makes more sense because you're going to get people to watch it because it's an appointment TV deal. But with streaming services and all of that new things where people are watching things on their phone and iPads, and some people don't even have televisions. They watch it on their computers and phones nowadays. You can't apply old school theory to new school situations. It makes no sense.
Jim, what did you think of the first year of the playoff? I mean, the first round, people were, out of sorts on Twitter, granted, or X or whatever, but that quickly recovered. By the second round, there was much more competitive games, but the ending being as late into the month as it was, just the timing of everything and the expanded field, what were just some of your impressions on how year one of the 12 team went?
I didn't particularly like it, and I love college football, but it just seemed to be so bizarre from a standpoint of it just didn't make any sense. Everything seemed to get dragged out so long that you almost forgot there was going to be a championship game.
Jim,
I agree with you. It was a showdown. We're looking forward to it. It did ramp up as it went on, but you kind of got so deep. Oh, there's still college football.
It was 11 days. 11 days between the those playoff games and the championship. You can't have 11 days go by.
It's 10 this year. So
okay, fine, good.
They lost it. They got to the gym and they lost a pound.
There you go.
But Jim, I also brought this up even during the playoff, is that there was a lot of this. It's a delay. There were 3 and 4 weeks between teams that qualified to play for a big bowl game or not. That there's a month off between the last game, and that was, of course, before the conference championship game era. But there were sometimes a month off. I think coaches probably didn't want that, but I don't know.
No, I mean, kids graduate. I mean, it's fine. I thought, okay, fine.
The portal.
Right. They're in the portal and gone. But no, there was way too much time. And, don't get me started on the situation where players opt out of bowl games because they don't want to get hurt for the NFL. But no, I mean, you're right, Smokey, that it seemed like, the Chinese water torture situation from the time the college football season ended to the time it actually ended in a championship.
Jim, what do you think about moving the start date of the whole season up so we're also not ending, January 19th, 20th, 21st?
I'd be fine with that. I'd be fine with starting the season at the last week or last 2 weeks of August if they would go that route.
There's no TV that says that would be a bad time to start, right?
No, because look, the only thing you're up against at that point is baseball. You're not up against the NBA. You're not up against the NHL. You're up against, in some regards, maybe preseason football. But that's, hit and miss along that line. So you're really not up against anything. I mean, look at the numbers for the quote unquote week 0 games. They do fine. But again, Paul, you're applying, you're applying forward-thinking logic that right now sports people in the who are presidents of the sports divisions in television just simply don't seem to want to think about.
Jim, I have said this before. Obviously, one of the ways we found you actually found me. You contacted me, and we had you on during all the summer of 21 and all throughout that. And then things have settled down, although the Pac-12 is trying to figure out another team or whoever. Right. But things have settled down a little bit. And there's still this flare-up. I call ambulance chasers on Twitter that like to throw out an idea. Yeah. And that's what they do, and there's a lot of love towards realignment. We have a lot of growth because of realignment. Mm-hmm. But is there anything at all simmering or will simmer until the TV contracts with the conferences ends?
Okay, I got myself in trouble before.
I know.
The first time we talked about this. I saw a lot of stuff on Twitter about Utah to the Big Ten. It's a quote-unquote done deal. No, it's not a done deal. Right now, no one is thinking of addition until they figure out what's going on and what's going right with their conferences. Does that mean that they don't, start talking about, well, what schools might be, advantageous for us to have? No, that's always going to keep going. But the thought of pulling the trigger and bringing somebody in or inviting somebody, they're going to wait until they get into a year or two from now, probably 2 years from now, when they start really seriously talking about new extensions in the contract.
Jim,
so wait a minute. You put out a tweet, and I think you forgot one word about
It's
Utah.
not surprising.
Yeah, they said Utah, and we feel they would be a good fit. But you said, but they are a lock. Did you mean to say, but they aren't a lock?
No, they aren't not a lock.
Okay, I wanted to clarify that for you.
See, I get in trouble every time I go to Utah. I don't know, and I love the people of Utah.
It's a beautiful state.
It's a beautiful state. I'd like to be able to go back again. Park City's beautiful. It'd be nice to get back there, but no, they are. The point is, the Big Ten thinks very highly of Utah. There's a good reason for it. It's a good university. It fits the Big Ten, zeitgeist with all the different things that they have. So that's all fine and good. Nobody is a lock anywhere right now.
Jim, the ACC, has come through a tumultuous period, and now it lives in a state of calm. Obviously, not everybody's happy. Completely, but they're in the best. Every side is in the best situation for themselves right now.
Sure.
Is there a scenario that sees the ACC finding a way to strengthen itself outside of them just winning games and having good TV numbers, which, given the largesse of the conference and the fact that there's so many teams in it, they can't possibly all be that good, that would prevent them from existing in the future?
Paul, you and I had a lovely conversation in the summers and in the fall about the Pac-12, and I always said, they're not going anywhere. I don't think that the ACC is going anywhere, but my history on conference dissolving didn't quite. It's funny too if you think about it. Had they just had one more year, Turner lost the NBA, all that stuff opened up. The Pac-12 probably could have survived had they just had one more year, but they didn't. But to get to your point about the ACC, honestly, I just don't see it imploding because there's way too many universities who really have no interest in going anywhere other than where they are right now.
Yeah, it's amazing. In all your time in covering sports and consulting and being a part of the TV and media network business, is realignment the biggest hot point or lightning rod that you've experienced in such a short amount of time?
David, you and I have been around for more than a couple of weeks. And honestly, I hate to say it because I love college football. It is something that I have really, it's been a great part of my life for many years. It's probably, to me, the one thing that's ruined college football in my lifetime. It's that whole situation of the realignment. I don't think it needed to be done, and it was. And it was everybody for themselves, and I really think that everything could have stayed proper in its regional form had everybody not panicked and went running for the money.
Was it running for the money and egos also a part of that too? Because
I suppose ego is always a part.
Yeah.
Ego is always a part of anything having to do with sports, whether it's the presidents of the universities or the athletic directors of the universities or whoever you speak to, the coaches. Ego always enters it, but I think the money aspect of it and the thought of being left at the altar didn't exactly appeal to some people, which caused them to panic and do things that they may not have wanted to do later down the line.
The ACC, Paul, you brought them up. They've got how many teams?
17.
17. Does that include Notre Dame?
No.
No. Okay.
17 and a friend with benefits.
Yeah, so no, like the parachute basically. Yeah. So we've discussed the note that North Carolina, Florida State especially was very public, and Clemson. In the end, did anyone win with all the fighting and legal? Did anybody win, or was it just a?
I think it was a wash. Personally, if you take the legal fees that were paid out by everybody involved, I don't see where, what did you FSU and Clemson, did they move the needle a bit to get them more money? Yeah, I guess. Is it enough money to make them happy? I don't know that there's ever going to be enough money to make them happy. But if all they were doing was trying to push the narrative that they need more money, they got it. But I don't see that it. Honestly, I don't see that it was basically much to do about nothing in my mind, because they could have worked that deal out if they just sat down in a room and just worked it out with their own lawyers. They didn't have to go to court to get that done.
Is Jim Phillips the right guy for the ACC, or do you see that maybe having an expiration date?
Look, Jim Phillips is a good man, okay? But I think right now, guys like Bob Thompson, Tony Petitti, guys like that, you need somebody with a television background who can help you move to take as much of the content that you can produce and get it on platforms and basically push out as much content as you possibly can. I'm not so sure that that's in Phillips's wheelhouse. And again, that's no shade on him. They picked him because he was good at putting together sports departments. And if you were to go back 10 years and say, okay, I need a commissioner, he's your guy. But, times have changed. And if you look at what the Big Ten did, if you look at what obviously the Big 12 did, they went out, they got people who understood that not just TV, but all different types of media. That was very helpful. So I honestly think that right now that what the ACC, if they're going to replace the Jim, needs to do is go out and find themselves somebody who can help them in the marketing of the conference as it is with regard to television and streaming, and get as much content out there as they possibly can.
Brett Yormark came in like a Doberman, or maybe it was a pit bull, or someone that could be an attack dog. Yeah. And you thought, okay, this is a new sheriff in town. Bowlesby, despite some mistakes and obviously not paying attention to what was going on, and I don't know who would have known about Texas and Oklahoma, but maybe he should have, was able to react quick enough. That's how you and I got to know each other with BYU and Houston and Cincinnati and also, UCF.
Yeah.
Where is he now? It seemed like, because the other Power Four conferences, the ACC and also the Big 12, have kind of given a little bit to these mega conferences with all the power.
Right.
And maybe they had to, Jim, about college football, automatic qualifiers, this and that. Where would you say Yormark is on a scale of 1 to 10 based on how he started and where he is now and where the Big 12 sits?
You mean in what regard?
Has he done everything you thought
he
would?
I'd say 8.
Has he backed down a little bit?
I think he's at an 8 out of 10. He did everything he could for the conference. There's only so much you can do, and I think that Brett, used was wise early on and got what he wanted, and ended up probably getting more than he thought. So, I would say, 8 out of 10 for him. I'm not going to give him a 10 because nobody gets a 10 at this point. But Brett I think of what would have happened to the conference had he not been there. At the absolute worst, and I think Bowlesby doesn't get enough credit for this, he did backfill really quick, bringing in Cincinnati, UCF, Houston, and now I'm forgetting the other team. Who was the other team? Cincinnati. So yeah, I mean, he did. Bowlesby set that up, and then Yormark was, shrewd enough to jump into the ESPN deal and get that taken care of. So, all in all, I would have to say, without question, that he did a very good job. And then, there's only so much you can do, and he's always thinking outside the box. So yeah, I'd give him an 8 out of 10. I mean, he's done a lot.
Of the 4 schools that were added when they needed to react to Texas OU, because that was like, I mean, we've had ADs, presidents look around the room and like, if they could have done it in reverse order with the 4 that came in, Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado, of those 4 that came in the second time, which of those 4 is the better 4? Would it have been the ones from the Pac-12 that joined? I'm not trying to demean any of the schools. It's good that they're part of it.
In fairness, you would have to say the 4 from the Pac-12, because they had the pedigrees, right? They already had Arizona had national basketball championships. Utah and Colorado were on the rise, especially with Colorado getting Dion. So yeah, I mean, they were far more established than Cincinnati, UCF, Houston, and Cincinnati. But no, as you say, no shade on those other 4 schools. But if he only could have taken 4 schools, would it have been the Pac-12 over the ones that were promoted from outside? You'd have to say the Pac-12, because he also got the markets that went with him.
Yeah, and again, it's a timing thing. They weren't really available at the time. All right, so earlier, was it this week or last week, we were discussing, we had Ralph Rousseau from theathletic.com on, and we asked him about the possibility of a super league or the possibility of whatever might be another realignment. And it's a hot topic in college sports. He said it's going to be one or the other. It won't be both. That if there's going to be another realignment, there won't then be a super league. It's going to be one or the other. What do you think is the future? Whether there's going to be a separation and a super league, how many teams that might be, or just a bunch more realignment?
I think the super league probably makes more sense. More realignment doesn't necessarily make as much sense. If all you're going to end up is the SEC and the Big Ten at the end of the day, that doesn't. I don't think that necessarily makes it work. The sad part is, if you wanted to do that, they could have done that a few years ago. I'm talking about the Super League.
Right.
And done it in football and left everybody else. They could have just divorced football from the rest of the schools. From the rest of the sports, and kept the region, aspect of it, and just built that out first. But to me, just adding more teams to those conferences really doesn't do much, to me anyway.
All right, so tell everybody the backdrop you have behind you.
Yes.
Is what?
Actually, that's a television control room.
Yeah, I knew that because I've been in some of those before. But that's all those monitors, and that's amazing. Thank you for your time. I know you got to go.
Always a pleasure.
Jim, thank you very much. Jim Williams with us, media consultant, columnist with us on 365 Sports. And so there we are. It's good to see him again. And it's been a while. It's been probably not a couple of years, maybe 18 months or so since the last time we spoke with him on this show. When we come back, we had one of our owners sent us a graphic earlier today about the states in America who are the highest paid public employees. We'll come back with that. Your thoughts on it, our thoughts on it. John Valade sent that to us. That's next. And this is 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace, your hometown grocery store with a butcher shop and bakery, and the Bauer family can cut the steaks you want. I'd say about once every 3 months I will call, and usually not even give them enough head time. I'm kind of like, oh my God, and I'll order 6 or 8 cut ribeyes, bone in, maybe 3 or 4, and then with not the bone-in, boneless ribeyes. And there's 3 different choices of what particular cut you want as far as the grade. And they're always amazing. They're about 1.25 inches thick, and they're just delicious. I didn't have one last week, but I'm going to have one this weekend. I love going on the grill and cooking it, and they do that, and they do it very quickly for me. And then I'll go pick them up, put them in the deep freeze. I'll wrap them myself again, and then put them in the deep freeze. The steaks are absolutely delicious. But they also have, if you want to just go in there and get a couple of pounds of ground hamburger, if you want somebody to slice up as you want thickness of bacon, they also have that pepper. What is that? That black pepper is seasoned all over the place when it comes to your bacon. Chicken, pork, poultry, beef, and they have a lobster tank too. Big ones. Alphas, as I call them. Lobster tails. The bakery has what you need when it comes to sweets, whether it's cookies or pies or cakes or even, yes, fresh baked bread and kolaches every day. It's Waco Custom Marketplace, the Bauer family on Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don's Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions, IT success guaranteed.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Coming up around the corner, Mitch Harper from KSL Radio will join us. And, of course, we'll dig into BYU with had a really good recruiting. Spring drills have been over for 2 weeks or so. And then again, we had the story yesterday that a couple of pretty good players entered the portal. What's going on with that? He'll join us in about 10, 15 minutes. But here's the graphic. Here's this is, by the way, Paul, you don't know, this is the United States of America.
Oh, yeah. Good.
There is Alaska. That big blob on the left corner?
Where's Canada? That's the 51st state.
They're way up, and Greenland, the 52nd state, is just to the right of them. Now, everything in yellow is the highest paid public employee in all of those states. Now, I knew that salaries had risen. There's no doubt. There's been an arms race with that. But I didn't know it would be this large. John Valade sent this to us based on Andrew Petcash. But 43 of the 50 states in the United States, a college coach is the highest paid public employee. And what he mentioned here in this tweet was, you wait a little bit. Do you think there might be, at some point, there's a different color because it's not a football coach, but a football player?
No.
No.
College? No, because coaches make their salary mostly on what they've done. College players make their salary on potential, for the most part. Like it's swung the other way. Nobody is paying Kirby Smart because of what he might do. Like he earned his number by what he's done, right? I mean, there's a little bit of potential there, like what he might do, but they know, here's where he is, here's what the going rate is. As we're players, it's all potential.
Did we ever think, though, that there are some players in college football that are making more than some college coaches in college football?
Well, yeah, but not
so
head coaches.
Maybe not, but it's a thought. It's a discussion.
Yeah, it's like the top paid quarterback at the best school, let's say Ohio State versus like the Kent State head coach.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so it's that much of a degree of separation where you're talking about the worst program in the entire organization that is lucky to win a game, and then the national champions, like in that case. And I don't even know, what the differential would be, but absolutely not. There's not going to be a player making more than a head coach. If you're a head coach that's good enough to land a quarterback that's commanding like $10 million a year, then you're probably a $14 million head coach. Because how are you bringing in a guy and who would be worth that? I mean, if anybody, it would be Arch Manning. That is simply at this point based off of entirely hype. And even then, $10 million. I mean, Fran Brown was scoffing at $2 million for a receiver the other day, and the only guy he said would be worth it would be Jeremiah Smith. Well, there's not a lot of Jeremiah Smiths rolling around, and even he's still not worth $10, $12 million like you're talking about with some of the top college head coaches.
Yeah, it would be Ryan Day. He's not going to make more money than his own coach.
No, and what good would that do for anybody to have a player making more than your head coach? I mean, I don't think that's probably a very stable situation. I mean, I understand in the NFL, but guess what the NFL has? Contracts and rules and fines and things like that the league dictates, whereas the schools are pretty much policing themselves. So, I don't think we'll ever see that. I think college football has gone completely off a cliff if we're seeing a player getting paid more than a head coach, because I don't imagine the scenario where a program would have that much money to dole out to a single player and not have like one of the best head coaches in all of the entire game. I mean, you don't just have some schlub and you're going, we're going to pay $12 million for a quarterback and just hope this average ass head coach can lead him to a national championship. Mm-hmm. No, you're paying a bunch of money for a quarterback to have Nick Saban coach him, or Kirby Smart coach him, or Steve Sarkisian coach him. So I don't know. Maybe people feel completely differently and feel like that will happen, but man, I don't see that, and I think that the game's in a much different place if that is happening.
All right, college coach is not just football. The yellow, or whatever color you want to say that is football coach. Look at the ones in orange. Right there in the middle, Paul, a place called Kansas.
Bill Self.
Yep.
I bet you number 2 is Jerome Tang.
Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, like I would bet you the top 4 paid state employees in the state of Kansas are Bill Self, number 1, and some combination of Lance Leipold, Chris Kleiman, and Jerome Tang, 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, I think it could happen in basketball.
A basketball player? Oh, yeah.
I think that's much more likely. I think that's probably already happened in some places at this point. I think that might have happened in a lot of different places already. Now, we hear some of the figures being thrown around. The best college basketball coaches are getting over $5 million. I don't know how many college basketball players are getting $5 million deals.
And the states that have the schools that can pay a basketball player $4 million are paying their football and basketball coaches more than that.
$14 million. Is Javonte going to make more than Kevin Young?
What? Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Self makes $13 million, 23-24. I'm sure that hasn't changed much. And
problem is we don't know what Kevin Young makes.
That's true.
We don't know what he makes exactly, but I mean, I'll say no because I think it's one thing in the pros, but I think if you've got a situation like college where the player's making more than the coach can basically tell the coach to go F himself because I make more money than you, I don't think that's a system that you're really wanting to set up if your college is. I don't think that's going to pay off in the long run.
If they're smart enough to see it coming, which they better start working on that now.
I mean, yeah, but okay, so if you look at like Johnny Jones is the lowest paid head coach in college basketball that's on the record. Now, he's in the SWAC, so it's not like he's in a big league, but if they brought in a guy for $300,000, then that guy's making more money than Johnny Jones is, not counting bonuses and things like that. So I think at the low end, then maybe there's a guy, but you're also not talking about, like, they're not bringing in a multi-million-dollar player either. It would be somebody who's making like $500,000 or something, because if they can't how could they possibly afford that, right? Like, so I think there's a balance there of if you're able to pay your coach $10 million, then yeah, you're probably able to pay the quarterback $5 million. But I don't think if your coach is making $250,000, which I know is, let's say is making a couple million, I don't know that you're throwing $3 million at your quarterback. But basketball, I could see that gap closing a little bit. That seems like it's almost like the NBA salaries of just like how much those have skyrocketed. I could see the number one player in AJ DeBonce, if he's making $4 million, there's a lot of schools where he could go to where he's probably making more than the head coach. The problem is, you're not going to just some willy-nilly school. You're going to a program that's investing a lot of money. So that means they're also investing in their head coach.
All right, California, the UCLA coach is Cronin, highest paid. I believe that it would be him. Although Musselman's at USC, he got a pretty good dime. And then the state of Arizona, basketball coach, that wouldn't be Hurley. You think that's Tommy Lloyd? And is that going to be that? I don't know when this was updated. Would that be more than maybe what Dillingham is now making?
I mean, there's a list with coaching salaries. Tommy Lloyd's the 10th or 9th highest paid head coach in basketball. He's making $5.2 million.
I wonder if Dillingham is now. And again, I don't know when this graphic was dated.
So you're telling me Mick Cronin makes more money than Lincoln Riley?
It says
basketball
coach.
Private. Sorry. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
Never mind.
No. Yeah.
Every time I always forget that USC is private because they don't have a private school name.
No.
They have a very public school name.
Do you think anybody's gotten more money than Keontae George here of late at Baylor? Do you think some of the recent guys have? Probably the market has gone up.
Probably a little slightly up.
What was the rumor for him? That was like $3 million, right? Yeah. So let's say VJ is getting, $4 million? Would that be fair? Would you say that's probably in there?
Yeah.
Scott Drew's making more than $4 million.
Yeah, no, Scott's in the 6, 7, 8 million. Right.
So, I mean, I'm just throwing that as an example of like that those guys are making pretty high-end money as players. Like, I don't think that many people are getting paid more than VJ Edgecombe, at least coming out of high school, or Keontae George. Now, once they get there and establish themselves, maybe it's a different story. But Scott Drew's still making probably $5-6 million. So,
and especially after the Kentucky flirtation.
Yeah. So, he's making more money than he ever. I think he's a top 10 highest paid coach. They're a private school, but somehow he's still listed on here. So they got that from USA Today somehow or another.
I think at one point when the Kentucky thing was going on, I'm not sure before or after, it was like just over $5 million. Yep.
But yeah, I mean, the team as a whole is definitely making way more if you go that direction. Of course, that's obvious. But just a single player, I think, no. But what else did you have on there as far as?
All right, so I want to get to what you would think maybe if we did this 25 years ago. Nevada, medical school plastic surgeon. Paul, help me with the ones north.
Maine is the law school dean.
So many different,
Vermont, I can't read it from here. I remember reading it earlier.
College presidents.
Yeah.
A lot of college presidents. Medical school dean. College president. Those are the other ones that are not the coaches, and mostly football and then basketball.
Yeah. So, and of course, no politicians are on here because they're off the books.
Yeah, of course.
But I think they're.
And again, these are public employees, as we had to clarify that too.
Public employees. But it's and also look, you can see Alaska doesn't have a major university, so theirs is not going to be a football or basketball coach. Hawaii's is their football coach. Nevada surprises me a little bit, but when you are with the dean of plastic surgery at a university in Las Vegas, I do think that probably is a job that's in high demand.
Minnesota combination football and basketball coaches. That's why it's got the little bit of a, what do you want to call it?
Stripes?
Stripes. Yeah, that's a big word for me.
What's on your shirt?
Stripes.
Okay, there you got it the second time. Good job.
It's a convenience store called Stripes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's stripes because it's the
Stars
football and
stripes.
basketball coach make the same
That's
money.
what I said that. That's why I couldn't come up with stripes, though. I'm just, you guys, listen. Paul, you're on your way up here.
So is Craig. He just, he's just made the turn. Like I made the turn a long time ago.
All right, so there we are with that. Thank you for those. Some good stuff in the chat room as well. Mitch Harper from KSL around the corner. Roger Dodger, Caleb Williams made $10 million in 23, almost probably just as much as Riley, but not as much. And again, they're not listed USC private school.
Yeah, that's a fair one. I think Riley might be making more than that, but I don't know that for sure. That would probably be one of the closest examples that you would have, though. I don't think Nico is coming anywhere close to Josh Heupel.
No.
And I think in most places they're not even close. But that might be you think about that. You had to get him to transfer from Oklahoma. He's a big-time Heisman contender. But even still, yeah, I'd bank on Lincoln Riley. And if it's not like just base salary, $10 million versus $9 million or whatever, add in the home expenses and all of that. Now, I think Caleb Williams is getting a lot of that stuff too, like cars and all that probably for free, or, getting money for car payments, apartments specifically. But yeah, that'd probably be one of the closest examples. But I'd say 99.9 out of 100 times, or if not 100 out of 100, then yeah, that's not the case.
All right. Thank you very much, John Valade, for sending that our way. Just a little nugget. When we come back, we will have Mitch Harper. He covers BYU and football, recruiting, and much more. He's next. This is 365 Sports. Don Chumidor and Coffee Beans in the Townwest Shopping Center, just off or in between Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco. 48-foot walk-in humidor. And I've kind of turned a little bit of which cigar that I am now. I love Rocky Patel. Rocky Patel Torpedo Edge Light. I also like the Churchill length, and Rocky Patel really doesn't do much of that. Sometimes they do. There's the white, Rocky Patel white. This is called La Galera. I now really like that cigar. It's been around. It's been a highly rated cigar before. Cheyenne showed that to me when I was there the other day. It is a Churchill length. It's very good, and they have that cigar along with Padron Cohiba and so much more. Don Chumidor and Coffee Beans, Joshua and Cheyenne, just off Valley Mills in Waco.
Alan Samuels House of Travel is a full-service travel agency with highly experienced travel consultants plus support staff with over a combined 150 years in the travel business. They are ready to take care of any travel situation for you, your family, and your business, and with the kind of knowledge to complete a seamless itinerary and trip start to finish. They will search for the best deal to accommodate your budget, from air to cars, ship to shore, hotel, and even meeting space. Name a destination and they've been there. They know the places to go, and international and missionary travel is one of their unique specialties. Alan Samuels House of Travel, celebrating 50 years in business. Call Connie, Sherry, Linda, or Bambi at 254-776-2560, or find them on Facebook or at houseoftravelwaco.com. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
Mitch Harper, KSL, joins us. There you go. Mitch, thank you very much for being a part of the show. I'm David Smoak, Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak in 365 Sports. So they've wrapped up football. We have Kalani coming on Sataki tomorrow. Wanted to kind of just check in with you about the overall feeling coming out of where they were in spring drills, and then we'll get into recruiting as well.
Well, happy to be on, guys, first off, and good afternoon. I think this BYU football team is in a good place right now. I know that the transfer portal losses we'll probably touch on those with Marion and Harrison Taggart were surprising, but this team feels like they've got good depth, and they feel like they're a group that has the ability to break through and get to the Big 12 championship game this year. Now, that's going to be the challenge for this BYU team and program at large, is they've shown that they can compete in the Big 12. Last year at this time, it felt like BYU didn't belong coming off a 5-7 season. Now they know they can compete, and their NIL efforts have improved. Now it's a matter of kind of breaking through and getting to that championship game. They felt like they deserved to be there last year. Even Jake Retzloff called the Alamo Bowl the Big 12 People's Champion against Colorado. But now they got to get it done. So it's a talented football team with probably the best depth Kalani Sitake has had since he's been the head coach, and he's entering his 10th season.
So, but they lost a couple of good depth pieces there. What does that come down to? Because both those guys were going to see time, I'm assuming. So it's not about they lost their starting job. Is this a, trying to find more money situation?
Keelan Marion definitely could be a spot with the looking for more money potentially. He had a huge market right when he officially hit the portal. He was going to be a starter, no question. He was probably the best wide receiver, no questions asked in spring ball. Chase Roberts was out as he continues to recover from a torn labrum injury. He's going to be the number one guy in the fall, and he would have been still even with Keelan Marion in the fold. But as a slot receiver, BYU, you saw signs of it last year. They were utilizing Marion kind of in the Puka Nacua type role. Nowhere near as talented as Nacua from a few years ago, but they were utilizing him in a lot of different ways. And there was a feeling that let's turn him into the All-American that he was in the kick return game. Let's see that as a wide receiver too. There was big expectations. So his entry was a surprise. Harrison Taggart, it's a little bit interesting with him because in spring ball, we did see a lot of Sialia Sarah, a former 4-star recruit who's in his 3rd year in the program. He was dealing with a Lisfranc injury last season, was healthy, but coaches kept him in redshirt status. So he only appeared in 4 games, but you saw him kind of break out in the Alamo Bowl, and he was also highly productive in spring ball. They love their linebacker depth there. And Sarah, I think, he doesn't skip a beat as that inside linebacker potentially for BYU replacing Taggart. But Taggart's a big loss too. Both those guys, wherever they end up, they're going to be starters. I think they're power conference players, no doubt about that. But linebacker position, they're going to be okay. Wide receiver, they got to be active in that portal and add a guy or two to replenish or fill that loss of Keelan Marion.
Mitch, how comfortable do you think the program is now? The transition having occurred at this point, you're kind of on the other side of that. It's still relatively new feeling, but does it feel kind of like the proper fit now and everything's just sort of on track? I guess if that makes sense.
It does, and there's in the background there's a AD search that's still ongoing. It's 3 months in now, and BYU's turning over every stone to fill that AD vacancy because that's going to be critical, replacing Tom Holmoe, who's been around since 2005. But the Big 12 has been a platform for BYU where they feel like they've, kind of taken off. And it's now a game changer is what many people around the athletic department have told me BYU's completely embraced the Big 12, and they feel like this has been an opportunity to really showcase their resources, their ability to take it to a higher stage. And I think getting that little bit of taste of success, whether it's football, men's basketball, they just want to keep, tasting that and taking it to a higher level. And football's no different. Having that proof of concept that you can win in this league, and still, even though the offense wasn't the best last year, they still feel like they can take it to a higher level. And I think they've been very selective with their portal pickups. They only had about 7 or 8 guys that they added out of the portal. That number is going to, of course, increase in the coming weeks with the spring portal window and the need to get wide receivers. But BYU feels like they want to be a player in this league, and I think that's what's been fascinating since this league came together in 2023. Is everyone's chasing to be that yearly fixture where you just say, okay, you just assume they're going to be at the top of the heap because of what they've accomplished year after year. BYU wants to establish itself as that, and it's going to be a challenge because it's a difficult schedule again. But Kalani retained his staff. He's got a lot of the key pieces personnel-wise on the team. They're in a good place right now, and they feel like they're in a spot where they can continue the momentum they built from last year.
Mitch, I think you may have said this, but Marion was the dynamic kick returner, and obviously they felt like maybe he could flash that as a receiver. Is his loss then more than Taggart's because the depth at BYU at linebacker?
Yes, I believe so. Because you look at the BYU wide receiver unit, Roberts comes back, but he's been this leading receiver the past 2 years, but he's coming back from a shoulder injury. He had shoulder surgery in the winter, and that's always delicate. He missed spring ball, and all expectations is that he's going to be ready for fall camp, but still coming back from an injury. And then, they're going to look to guys like Atene Nakua, who's the younger brother of Puka Nakua, not a, proven commodity, more of a developmental player, but really took a big step forward in spring practices. And then a former 4-star recruit, Cody Hagan, they really like him. He was banged up a little bit in spring ball. He could take a step forward. And then also JoJo Phillips, third year in the program. He's a redshirt sophomore. So they've got options, but there's not as much depth and proven players at the wide receiver position. And, if Chase Roberts isn't fully healthy, that suddenly becomes, I don't want to say thin group, but it could be a group where it's a big question mark for, again, a schedule that you have, 2 early games on the slate where you should win, but then you go cross country to East Carolina, and then you're in the heart of Big 12 play going at Colorado. It's a tough schedule. So BYU's got to find some answers in this portal cycle in the spring window to rebuild that wide receiver unit, in my opinion.
Why do I feel like Chase Roberts, who's only in his 4th year, has been there for 8? It seems like it. Yeah, I remember when he had the big game at BYU at home against Baylor. I just seem like he's been around longer than that. Of course, this is his 4th year, so it's not like he's a freshman or anything.
Well, yeah, since BYU's kind of been on the Big 12 radar, Chase has been on the roster since 2021, so had a mission, and then he redshirted, and now 4 straight years. He considered the NFL a little bit, but BYU took care of him from NIL and roster retention, and he decided to run it back. He would have probably been a late day 3 guy at best, because the wide receiver position is always so deep. You got to be elite to be a top 100 pick at that spot. But Chase feels like he can and continue to improve, because I thought he was highly productive last year. I expect his workload to increase a lot, though. I mean, last year, 50 to 60 touches somewhere in there. With Marion gone, they got to utilize him in a lot of different ways. 75 touches should be at a minimum for Chase Roberts if he's fully healthy.
So last year, obviously, the whole thing was, my God, who's the quarterback going to be? I mean, it was, and that was until the week before the season started, and then Jake Retzlaff has this fantastic season. Is the perfect leader that the team needed in the moment for sure, and got better as the season went along. Now that they don't have that question to answer, A, has everything feel like it's more fallen into place, and B, what are the things that are going to keep BYU fans up at night, at least a little bit curious about, okay, how do we help Jake, take that next step?
There's still that feeling with Jake about ball security and take in turnovers. Last year, 12 interceptions. Aaron Roderick, the offensive coordinator for BYU, is, challenged Retzlaff to be more in line with what Zach Wilson put up in 2020, around 33 touchdowns, 3 picks. I mean, that's incredible stuff. That was a relatively weak schedule amidst COVID. Jaron Hall was similar, whereas 30-plus touchdowns, only 6 picks. That's the expectation, I think, for a senior Jake Retzloff, and that's what Aaron Roderick has challenged him to do. I thought Retzloff in spring ball, it wasn't as precise and as the execution wasn't as high as maybe I was expecting in the media observation windows that we got to see, but there were some key guys out on the offense, and the offensive line is a little bit retooled. I think they've got good options there, but that is going to be an area to figure out who's going to be that starting 5 in front of him. But Retzloff is a really good leader, but can he become the best quarterback in the Big 12? I feel like that's going to be the requirement. You saw it last year. Sam Leavitt was the best QB in this league, and they won the conference. And, Jake Retzloff's kind of been in the spotlight. He's gotten NIL deals that have kind of elevated his popularity and fame. Is he going to still be that guy that makes the main thing, as he likes to say, and take this thing to a higher level? That's going to be the challenge, because those turnovers have been costly. Even in that Alamo Bowl, that was one of the downsides of what felt like a near flawless performance from BYU. It was some of those turnovers from Jake. He's got to clean that up. And if he can, BYU could be, real tough out and want to be one of the top teams again in the league. And last year they averaged around 31 points. They got to get that up to around 34, 35 points, be in the top 20 of scoring in college football, in my opinion, if they're going to be in that top of the Big 12.
Mitch, excuse me for not knowing, the past 20 years of BYU history, but has there never not been insane crowds? I mean, is it like other places where you have to win to a certain clip, or is it always like that no matter what?
It's a good question, because about 20 years ago, oddly enough, there's always been a strong base of at least 55,000 you're going to probably see at BYU games. But, as far as just the entertainment, the theatrics, Cosmos on, jumping off a parachute, whatever it is, that's kind of elevated itself in the last 7 to 10 years. I remember BYU brought in a marketing firm from New York. They've also got a marketing team with David Almadova, who's on their support staff. They've really kind of taken things to a higher level on that side of it. And I think also, too, that BYU Baylor game in 2022, when Brett Yormark came to BYU for the first time, there was a real kind of challenge to just enhance the entertainment aspect. BYU traditionally used to be a place where it was just do the same thing over and over again. And for many years, it got pretty stale. I think the last decade or so, it's really leveled up. And I think, again, being in the Big 12, trying to find new revenue streams, new avenues to entice people to come to games, that's, I think, helped the efforts of doing that. Because now, even if BYU is not the 11-2 team, there's still this Cosmo's going to do a crazy stunt, the food, all this stuff, the crazy crowds, the fireworks, people are all decked out of blue. That was not commonplace. They've always had big numbers, but the entertainment side of it has really leveled up. And I think that kind of adjusts to what we're seeing in the market today, where you got to have more than just a good on-field product. You got to have a environment to entice people to share their content on social media and kind of show that they're there. They've improved the Wi-Fi system. So they've done a really good job of that. And then, of course, having the on-field product helps the cause as well.
Well, that game you talked about was double overtime game. It was nuts. Yeah. Night game. And everyone that traveled up there had never been there before. Maybe we played back in the 80s, but that just couldn't stop talking about it. And I think would love to see that type of atmosphere in any stadium. If it's not, there's a few probably like that too. So last year, BYU won by 3, 1, and 6. And the history, really, recent history in the Big 12, Mitch, and this, is that there have been teams that have had a surge, and they were right there and not getting enough credit from the College Football Playoff Committee before the 2 losses. But there has been, you win a handful of those, and the next year, that's not as easy. Is that even being discussed right now?
It needs to be. And Kalani Sitake was hitting on it hard in spring ball about complacency. BYU loses 2 guys in Tyler Batty and Connor Pay. I think Tyler Batty's a guy that we could hear his name called this week and maybe in day 3 as a defensive end. But those guys were leaders that really kind of led things inside the locker room beyond the culture that Kalani's has built, and people talk about that. And everything that Kalani does, but it was really a player-led team. They were really motivated by coming off a 5-7 season. You had a lot of guys motivated. BYU's always been a team and program historically that does well as an underdog. It's when the expectations happen, when they come upon that program, can they deliver? And I think that's going to be a real challenge. And you saw that fine margin for error in the Big 12 last year when, BYU goes up against a 5-win Kansas team and they lose that game in Provo. And Retzloff had some real poor decisions in that game. Clean those up and you're going to a Big 12 championship game to play, probably ASU. So it's a fine margin for error. And, I think some people said that this schedule is not good. I completely disagree. I mean, I think just the logistics of it, of having Utah in the middle of the season in October, Texas Tech on the road, we see what they've done in the transfer portal. This is going to challenge BYU. And if they can come out with another 10, 11 win season, they're going to be prepared to, for whatever the postseason has in store for them. But it's a thin margin for error. But I think that's, where BYU has really kind of been aggressive and selective with who they identify in the portal. Keanu Tanavasa, defensive tackle from Utah. Jay Hill, the defensive coordinator for BYU, has said he could be the best D tackle in the country. Now it's high expectations, but they think very highly of him and what he can provide in the interior. He's going to be one of the leaders that kind of leads that player-led program that you saw a year ago. He's going to be one of those key guys.
Mitch, Marion and Taggart, if they were to happen to end up in Waco and playing for Baylor, would that be the trade that was for Rob Wright III?
Yeah, yes,
players to be named later.
UCLA, Tennessee on their trade, BYU, Baylor. It would be great. I think that would be perfect. Maybe that can silence everything.
That would be fun. I don't know if there's nobody. I know you got to go. We do too. But of the 8 teams that are a part of the Big 12, the new schools, nobody, I can't think. Houston basketball obviously has taken advantage of the jump and being a part of the conference like BYU has done. I can't. I mean, Arizona State last year, and this and that, Colorado, the excitement, but nobody has taken advantage of it like it appears, no question, that BYU has done.
I agree, and I think that it was just a program that always felt like once they got that validation in a conference, they could really take it to higher levels. But still, they haven't won a title. They haven't. They've been competitive, but there's still another gear. There's still another level that they have to reach. And can they? I mean, football and basketball, they've been close. They've had big wins and taken the nation by storm in times, but they still haven't won anything as far as a title yet. So that's going to be the challenge for both football and men's basketball. It's going to be a fascinating year. And I think BYU fans, they are as fired up as I've seen them. I mean, they were excited to get into this league. It feels like it's even kicking into a higher level with the expectations, preseason likely rankings for football and men's basketball. Should be a really interesting year to follow and cover BYU sports this upcoming year.
Mitch, thank you. Good stuff. Great segment. Thanks for being a part of the show. Mitch Harper, KSL Sports, with us on 365 Sports. By the way, BYU football, somebody with that tag name has been in the chat room today. Good to see you as a part of that too.
Yeah, I mean, they're a really interesting program. They've more than backed up their place in the Big 12, I think, at this point. Only been in a couple of years, but you see the investments. You see that paying off in on-field success as well. And they're at the head of the pack. I mean, they've got company. I think Arizona State's shown that they're, going to do pretty well. And Arizona basketball, and there's a lot of other sports that we don't talk about, a lot of the spring sports, like the stuff that adds up to the Directors' Cup that Arizona's winning or Arizona State's winning or others are involved in. But I think, it's been a nice transition with these new teams. There's still some odd fits at times, like Utah, which just refuses to believe that it doesn't belong somewhere else. But beyond that, I think it's been a really competitive league. And part of that is everybody kind of up in their game and then the new schools coming in like a BYU and certainly – up in everybody else's game to some extent as well. Like, hey, we're going to be a part of this NIL game. Like, we're going to pay well. We're going to have good coaches. We're going to have maybe the best home field advantage in the league. We're going to, be supportive of our programs. And that's what the league needs. And it's really paying dividends for BYU at the moment because they're cooking. The really good football season, not where you wanted it to end, obviously, but really good basketball season, not where you wanted it to end, but showed a lot of promise and did a lot of good in both of those sports. And I'm just mentioning 2 sports, but they're the 2 main sports. So, they've been a nice addition and have definitely carried their weight so far.
I just realized this in the incoming transfers. Garrison Grimes is their long snapper. He was at China Spring, and then his dad, of course, was at Kansas and moved on. But I just happened to look at their depth chart and saw that was a name that was familiar.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people assumed he was going to go to Kansas, and to be perfectly honest with you, with our transition, just stopped paying as much close attention.
Sure, I did too. That's why I said it. Yeah,
I know that he was going to the portal, but I didn't really keep tabs on it after that. So not totally surprised. I guess that's where you had obviously a background already. So to go back to Provo is not a surprise, and he's a pretty solid long snapper. He had some injuries while he was here, but beyond that, he did a good job. So yeah, he ought to be sturdy.
I would, if I was a CEO, I would call Tyler Batty. I know he's going to get drafted. We interviewed him in Frisco, and I would say, I want you to work for my company. We'll find a room for you, and you will eventually run my company because of how impressed I was with him, his personality, smart, knowledgeable, good-looking dude, great football player that we got to get to know a little bit better at the pro day in Frisco.
Well, I mean, he was just a good guy. If you're going to have like media days, that was a good dude to bring and
no
represent
doubt
your brand. He was really good about repping BYU, and enjoyed talking to him amongst all the other guys as well. But he was definitely one of the better interviews we've had from players in the last couple of years, no doubt.
When we come back, Craig Smoak Off the Radar. There's a note that Matt Brown had with Extra Points, newsletter that I read about percentages of players in men's basketball enter the portal. Which way do they go, up or down? And we'll have that note. That's in the 5 o'clock hour. Plus John McClain, Paul's Top 5, but Off the Radar with Craig is next. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. Marco's Pizza with, of course, the pizza that you want to build. Like, yeah, everybody does that if they're in the pizza business. But I like to kind of go in there and play a little bit about adding some stuff. I don't usually put too many vegetables on my pizza. I'm kind of an all-meat guy. But Marco's Pizza, I have done that. I've like pepperoni and then bell peppers and onions, mushrooms. It's pretty damn good, by the way. Marco's Pizza with 5 locations in this area, wherever you might be. It is the fastest growing pizza brand in America, so maybe there is 1 or 10 in your area. I don't know. Go to Marco's Pizza, marcos.com online, and find all of the specials they have with code words for this amount off or what you get if you get this. Build your own pizza, damn good pizza, Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund. BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
Welcome into Off the Radar Tuesdays, Thursdays at around, give or take, 4:45 or so, just before the 5 o'clock hour. Stop down and take a look at a grab bag of stories, depending on what's going on in the world of sports and what we find of interest. And I do have to start off on a sad note, but I think this is actually the biggest story because outside of this today, quite frankly, it's a lot of schedule talk when it comes to playoffs going on for both the NBA and the NHL. A couple of other notes besides that, but a major passing in the world of sports broadcasting. Mike Patrick has passed away at age 80. Longtime ESPN play-by-play man, 36 years to be exact. And I can hear his voice in my head right now, but you start to look over, and it's sad when this typically happens after someone's passing. You get like the story of their life or of their career, and then you get the full scope of what somebody's done and accomplished. And he lived a long life, 80 years old, but, man, he did a hell of a lot when it came to the world of sports and play-by-play as well. He was not a West Virginia alum, but he was a West Virginia native and a big supporter of West Virginia. So I know some Mountaineers' hearts are aching today with this news as well. But 36 years as a play-by-play commentator for ESPN. And I'll just kind of bounce around on some of the highlights of his career as laid out in the article. Amongst those 36 years, 18 seasons as the voice of Sunday Night Football, doing the NFL games. And by the way, passed away in Fairfax, Virginia, natural causes. So just wanted to point that out as well. But began at ESPN in 1982, called his last event in 2017, which was the Liberty Bowl, was the Sunday Night Football voice from 87 to 2005, called more than 30 ACC basketball championships, voice of the ESPN Women's Final Four coverage from 96 to 2009, called the first ever regular season NFL game in 1987 in a booth that also had Joe Theismann initially, and then Paul McGuire was the voice for ESPN's Thursday night college football, Saturday night college football, play-by-play for coverage of the College World Series. And I could go on, but you get some of the gist of what he accomplished. And so Mike Patrick passing away at age 80.
I loved Mike Patrick.
I did too.
I mean, he was
solid as a rock.
He was, you know what? Everybody kind of has their thing that they're really good at. That kind of separates them from the pack. You know, Jim Nance is really good at like painting like a poetic picture of whatever he's doing. Keith Jackson was really good at capturing the enthusiasm of the venue he was in. Mike Patrick was so good at telling the story of the game before it started. Like in that very short time that he has before he has to go to Paul McGuire and Joe Theismann for their opinions, those 5 to 8 sentences that he got to do as he was setting up a game, whether it be college or like those Thursday night games, and some of them were duds. Like, they're not all winners, right? But if you turned on the game and didn't see the records and listened to Mike Patrick intro the game, you'd be like, Oh, this one's a big deal.
Game.
This is a big deal. This is going to be really interesting. He was really good at also finding the little storylines and then not overdoing it. You know, here's a little storyline, here's a little storyline, here's a little interesting fact, but it wasn't like the over and over and over again that we see so many times now. He, especially if he did a team twice during the year. So if he did Texas A&M 2 times, he would tell a story about this one player, and then the next time he's like, all right, well, I told that story.
Yes.
I'm going to do another story.
Unlike the throughout the year, you hear about how people have been roommates for 4 years or somebody else like that.
Did you know Colt McCoy and Jordan
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but that's what I'm talking about. Like, that came up a lot.
You know what people thought about with him? It wasn't because he did anything that was outrageous or anything for clicks and views. People had clicks and views of him because he was so damn solid and so professional and good. That, to me, was fantastic.
Yeah, so he grew up a Mountaineer fan and was a hardcore West Virginia fan, but he didn't actually go there. He wanted to initially, but I remember reading a story and then rounding back to it again today where his parents moved, or his grandparents moved to Northern Virginia. It's from a story that West Virginia had, I guess maybe a while back. But he moved to Northern Virginia to be closer to his mom. And since he was now out of state, he couldn't afford the tuition to go back to West Virginia. And so ended up going to George Washington University. But he held a fond love for West Virginia. So, yeah, long time, super solid play-by-play man Mike Patrick passing away at age 80 of natural causes. And, yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of other people out there that can hear his voice in their heads like I can right now. But, yeah, he was definitely solid.
I have sense memory about it because to stay up and watch, like when I was like 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, like on Sunday nights, if I wanted to watch the Sunday night game before I was made to go to bed, you know, I had to make sure my room was clean. I had taken my shower and I was like ready to go. And I can still feel like, you know, I can still smell the Pert Plus in my hair, you know, like right out of the shower. Like I would time it like out of the shower, ready for bed, in front of the TV for the you know, when Sunday Night Football came.
I'm a Pert Plus guy.
Yeah. I mean, like I could still feel it. And like, so I could feel it. I know we were living in Bossier City. My exact path was room, shower, back to the room, straight there. And if it wasn't turned on to ESPN, there was going to be a problem in that room.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's going to be a problem because I had held up my end of the bargain.
Yeah. No, you did your job.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there you go. There's an unfortunate piece of news to have to pass along today. Just bouncing around a little bit on some college news that we haven't got around to. There's a couple of championships decided this past weekend. I'm going to do a whole recap of the Directors' Cup when we get to that point. But obviously we have baseball still ongoing, have softball still ongoing. But we did have gymnastics this past weekend. I actually, in a house full of women, ended up watching that because my mom and my sister are massive gymnastics fans. So if there was some downside to Oklahoma and Texas leaving the Big 12, there was various championships that you used to just get, maybe take for granted that you don't anymore. But OU women's gymnastics won the national championship over the weekend.
I did not know
Michigan
that.
won the men's national championship over the weekend. So those were just a couple of sports that were decided in the last few days. And again, when we get to the end of the semester and everything's been decided, I think it'll be interesting to take a look, not just at the National Directors' Cup and where that's been very much Texas kind of spearheading that, but Florida's been involved, and Stanford for the longest time was like the dominant program. But I'm going to do that for the Big 12 and see, like, with
Texas
all of these
Tech,
new
I bet, is
schools.
pretty high, yep.
Huh?
I bet Texas, they've won a few things. That'd be interesting to find out who that would be. Good deal.
But I am going to sit there and take a look at it with these new schools and see, like, the swimming and diving championships that Texas used to bring in all the time, or softball, which now both of those programs are really good at, or gymnastics, like with Oklahoma. Are those being supplanted at all? But either way, Michigan winning the men's, yet OU winning the women's, and that's about as off the radar as I feel like I can get. So that's why I mentioned them in this segment. But also when it came to other spring sports, Stanford softball set the single game attendance record for most attended softball game in a 10-8 loss to Cal. They broke the single game NCAA softball attendance record with 13,200 207 fans as a part of their big swing event over the weekend at Stanford Stadium. It was a big rivalry and a big game for both teams. So just kind of cool that they made it a point to try and go and break the record, and they were able to do that. They broke the record pretty comfortably of 12,566 that was set in last year's Women's College World Series, but also broke the previous regular season record by a very comfortable stretch, which was just a little over 9,200 that had been set earlier this year. So finding creative ways to try and spice things up, I'm all for that. But, yeah, they set a new softball attendance record, Stanford and Cal.
Stanford, you mentioned the overall best athletic department. You know what might keep Stanford from being able to give Texas a run for their money
Football?
is their baseball team.
Oh,
sucks.
baseball. Yeah, well.
And that used to be a given. I mean, they used to be a given. Their baseball team is 6-15 in the conference. So I saw a note from, there's a guy that covers that. He does a great job of giving projections, and it looks like UT is going to have enough to be able to win it again. But I know you'll finalize that when we get to that point.
When you said Florida's up there, Craig, like
they are
like, look,
it's a great athletic department.
They are. You know what? I respect the hell out of them. Those Gators.
I've made my peace over the years with the fact that Texas is going to, be at the top of this thing more often than not. I can't have that too. It's just a lot to deal with emotionally.
Well, it's just two great athletic departments. I mean, you just, you know what? You want to break it up.
The best in their respective states, right?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Oh,
no, I got to say, yeah, I'm careful saying that in Texas with all of the Texas Tech and TCU and Baylor and everybody else. But yeah.
Speaking of Texas Tech, so Kim Coulter, just out of nowhere, I think Sunday night, sends me a text. Hey, we won this in our softball team and all that. And it reminded me of when Paxton used to be able to update us on the 19 different conference championships that UT had. And I told Kim, and Paxton, this is not a negative to you. I told Kim, I said, I didn't know if that text came from you or Paxton, because Kim was so proud of that. And then I think I made him have to get into a fetal position.
Well, we'll see what kind of ground they made up, because as of the fall standings, in the fall had North Carolina, I believe it was, as the top school from all the fall sports in the Directors' Cup. But
yeah,
Texas Tech was pretty low. I think they might have even been last in the Big 12 as far as fall sports go. Now they can make up some ground. That didn't include basketball, all the way, obviously. But yeah, we'll get to that point when the time comes on the Directors' Cup standings. But just an interesting note about softball, and then also a couple of other championships won this past weekend. But the Directors' Cup right now, Texas is I believe in the lead, and you've got Stanford and North Carolina and USC, and I don't know where Florida is, but they're somewhere like in the mix, I think, as well. But still a little bit of a ways to go for that. So congrats to Oklahoma and Michigan on their freshly minted national championships.
I thought Nebraska
Meanwhile,
was going to win the gymnastics title.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. You take what you can get,
me too.
and they've got some proud programs. Meanwhile, you've brought up the Nico Harrison stuff. Do you have anything in particular you want to talk about here? Because I really don't care to.
I want to.
I do.
No.
So basically what's happened the last few days is the Mavs dunce GM, Nico Harrison, has now decided, after all of these weeks of people being pissed off at him and the organization, now they're doing the PR tour. And they can't even do that right, because they invite selected reporters last week to a closed-door meeting. Tim McMahon basically rips them a new one, which I'm glad that he did that, amongst various others. They say you can't record it. Everybody took notes and then wrote about it directly afterwards. So we got to see the stupidity not long after it ended. He's doubled, tripled down. Meanwhile, Luka's got like a new commercial out that he probably wouldn't have had if he was still a Maverick, but now he's a Laker, so they're really pumping him up. He's got a new Nike commercial, I believe it is Nike, where he's like in this courtroom setting and they're making fun of defense. And it's a play on, I think, to some extent, Nico's comments about defense wins championships, which is, just whatever. So he's been making the rounds of stupidity. I saw Charles Barkley the other night take a moment to call him out, saying that Nico's a friend of his, but that like he's got to stop talking because it's doing absolutely no good.
Because he's just.
So what do y'all want to talk about? Because I was at home this past weekend, and my brother-in-law, Daniel, and my sister as well are both big Mavs fans, and we got into this conversation, and we've all been trying to move on from it, but it's very clear the wound hasn't healed at all. And so we just got into the minutia of it, and it was therapeutic. But we got nowhere in terms of trying to make any more sense of it than it's made so far, because it still makes absolutely no sense. So what do you guys want to talk about?
I think Nico's misunderstood.
No, I wanted to get into because here's the thing. It all boils down, when you said dunce of a general manager, he said one thing that is maybe the dumbest thing I've ever heard a general manager say. And it was
glory hole. Oh, wait, that was another general manager in Dallas.
You know what? Dumber than that. In that I underestimated the Mavs fans' connection to Luka.
Yeah, man.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I had to read that quote twice.
No, I had to read it like a bunch of times, saying like, okay. I even went and read the rest of like what he said after to see if that was just like a pull quote that was taken out of context. It was not.
No.
He absolutely was like, oh yeah, well, I didn't think they liked him that much. Honestly, he was the only one they really loved.
Yeah.
Like everybody else could come and go. There is not often, because there's always the star, right? And then there's like fan favorites and then little engines that could. I don't think Mavs fans love Kyrie Irving. I think they like him. I think they're fine with him. Klay Thompson or Clay's a hired gun.
Oh,
nobody's walking around going like Derek Lively, they're.
You know what, part of people like Derek Lively a lot, but nobody is just like gushing over in love, like they were with Luka. And part of Kyrie and his endearment to the team was, he's a really good basketball player. And, oh, wow, he's not like all of the New York media painted him out to be. He's not just running around talking about flat earth 24/7 or, whatever they tried to smear him with. And look, he smeared himself sometimes. But part of why he endeared himself, you know why? Was because of Luka as well. It was because of the relationship that they started to form, and seeing those two guys have fun playing together. People fell in love with Kyrie as well, because they're like, he's got a buddy. Yeah. He's got his buddy now, and you love the buddy duo now, and now you rip that away as well. So Luka even impacted that, to your point, Paul, that he made you turn the corner on Kyrie to some extent.
No, because you're right about the narrative of Kyrie. Yeah, and there were probably people waiting for those two to not get along, and they got along incredibly well. Nico Harrison is clueless. I saw a little crack in whether or not he remains with them. I guess he will, because Dumont, the owner, felt like he was blindsided. Well, he's wrong if he didn't know that was the same feeling that Mavs fans would have about Luka too.
Well, I haven't read everything that's out there. I don't know what he said recently that's any different. You had the last say on it. There's nothing that can come out at this point outside of that there was just some big behind-the-scenes conspiracy, because that's how ridiculous this whole thing is, that it would take a conspiracy to actually make sense. And that's why Mavs fans have had these hour-long discussions with fellow Mavs fans, and you just keep just going through every part of it, and you try to make some sense of it, and you get to the end of it, and you're like, the only thing that makes sense is some kind of conspiracy, or else these people are just the dumbest people on earth. And it turns out, I think they're just the dumbest people on earth. They're not moving the team to Las Vegas. That is stupid, and it's not happening. And I still see that going around, but it was just pure ego and stupidity. And so you kept sending me these texts and emails, and I get why, because they were talking about it, but I didn't know if there was anything particular I want to touch on. None of this has made me feel better about it.
No.
None of this has changed my mind about anything. It's only making it worse and worse and worse. And so Charles Barkley's right. Now talking's not doing any good. You should have talked 5 weeks ago. You should have talked a little bit more back then. But yeah, when you finally do talk again, and now you're doing all this talking, and the thing you're saying is, oh, well, I knew he was important. I just didn't know he was that important to fans. And you're the general manager of the team. You have no pulse of the entire community, and that alone should be fireable. But, the owner eventually is the one that signed off on it, the governor, the son-in-law, whatever.
Yeah.
So he doesn't get away with any blame. Final things here. Got Stanley Cup playoffs ongoing tonight, quadruple header. You got Carolina and New Jersey. Carolina leads that series 1-0. Toronto up 1-0, hosting Ottawa. Tampa Bay Lightning, game 1 against the Florida Panthers. Ought to be a hell of a battle in the Sunshine State. That starts at 7:30. And then the Vegas Golden Knights, game 1 at home, be hosting the Minnesota Wild. That doesn't start till 9 o'clock. So you got, I guess is that 10 East, Garrett?
That would be 10 East.
Okay, so
that's game 2 on that one.
So I guess Carolina, New Jersey's
Vegas has played once, right?
Getting underway.
Yeah. No?
Yeah, Vegas. Or did I say they hadn't? They lead
you
the series.
said game. You said it was the first game.
Oh, yeah, my fault. They lead the series 1-0. So you got 4 games tonight in the NHL, and then 3 games tonight in the NBA. Pacers hosting the Bucks. Pacers are up 1-0. OKC hosting Memphis. They're up 1-0. And then the Lakers against the Timberwolves, and the Timberwolves, that is, lead that series 1-0 after just trouncing the Lakers, which actually did my heart a little bit of good. I know there are some fans out there that are rooting for the Lakers now, which I just can't bring myself to do that.
I did
as much
when
as
they
I
had
love
Wilt
Luka.
Chamberlain and Jerry West.
Yeah, I can't do that, but they're in action tonight as Minnesota tries to steal both games in Los Angeles. But, a lot of playoffs in basketball and hockey on the sports docket tonight, and there are a few things off the radar.
Thank you, Craig. Anthony Edwards in Minnesota. I can't imagine the NBA will allow that to continue. I'm not saying that they could maybe flex.
Now we're really getting into conspiracies.
No, I mean, they when they made that trade for Luka to the Lakers were okay. They were okay, but this gave them a chance. And so I'd love to see Minnesota nuke them and knock them out.
Oh, I would too.
Yeah, I would too. I think that.
And nothing against Luka. I mean,
but I'm not rooting for him to salvage LeBron's ending of his career and give him another title or two just because they pulled off a trade that should never have happened to begin with.
There are 2 things I know in the NBA. Is one, the Spurs, whenever things are darkest, will wind up with the top pick and get a generational player. It's happened 3 times in their history. The other thing I know is whenever a trade happens in the NBA and you're like, WTF, it's the Lakers are on the receiving end of it. And you're like, wait a minute, how is this allowed to have, like, in the competitive balance? I mean, I think about the Paul Gasol trade was the biggest just lopsided deal that let the Lakers get back into the conversation.
Or Kobe.
Ever. Oh, I mean, like,
he was young.
Kobe was draft day. Nobody knew who he was.
But like, even still, you look back and you're like,
why would it be to the Lakers?
Hey,
Well, this one's so blatant, dude. LeBron's about to retire in the next couple of years, and he's not what he was, as good as he still may be. He's not the best player, undoubtedly, in the game anymore. They were barely a playoff team, if a playoff team, and now they're finding themselves easily making it in and one of the hotter teams at times. It ebbed and flowed, but certainly much better off than they were. And they've got a new superstar, so when that dude does retire, they don't even bat an eye. They just, all right, it's the Luka era now, and they have him for another 10 years. So, yeah, it's definitely plenty juicy enough to create a lot of conspiracy fodder, and I understand why, because none of it still makes much of any sense.
All right. Is that it, Craig? All right. Anthony Edwards and the T-Wolves against the Lakers. It'll be interesting. They thumped them pretty good in that first game. Oh, the Stars. Garrett. My God, they had to go overtime.
Mm-hmm.
But
they finally got it done.
They got it done. It looked like, 0-2. They'd lost 8 straight. That's a nice win to maybe get that thing calmed down just a little bit. All right. When we come back, John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist. But before we get to that, so if a player enters the portal, how long do they have until they have to make a decision of where they play next? Just a nugget on that. This is 365 Sports.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at Baylor.edu/alumni.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Penny Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Penny Clinic Waco and reach out to the Penny Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pennycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
A lot of people that do many things to help us every day. We mention them as much as we can. Garrett Ross runs the mothership, director, producer. Andrew Valade, who's working those polls constantly, and something that we would put up a poll or two, but Andrew puts up a couple of them every single show, and then we'll show the results at the end of the show. Emery Winter. And there's a lot more that John does. Andrew does. Emery Winter, who is the mothership of content when it comes to getting ready for 365 Sports tonight on the CW at 10:30 and other shorts and audio, video content we do as well. It's fantastic. It's great to have them involved. So the men's basketball portal, the football portal, am I right? That ends this week? Is it
Friday?
Friday.
Basketball's Wednesday.
Wednesday, that's tomorrow. The basketball portal ends. So, and they changed it up to try to align it with both undergraduate and graduate dates over the last year. When is the deadline, Garrett, for if you enter the portal, if you're going to play in the fall, when is the deadline to make a decision on where you play next year?
I honestly do not know.
There really isn't one, other than you need to make sure that you get in before the school semester is too deep into it in the fall. It's wide open. It makes sense?
Yeah.
Like I was wondering, okay, like in free agency, there's these deadlines or whatever. So I saw this to Borzello's tweet. Somebody said, so what is the set announce date? May 31st? No, it is whenever you eventually, let's say you go to Florida Atlantic, whenever they start their semester in the fall, you have to make sure you're in class before it gets too deep into the semester. So it's wide open. Now, having also said that, Mr. Garrett, I sent you a little extra points from Matt Brown. So the portal. Matt does a great job. He's been on the show many times with the extra points. The newsletter is fantastic. There are some days I just don't have time to read it, and sometimes it's just too much for me because there is a lot when it comes to the settlement and whatever else. Here is a breakdown. Paying attention, boys. Tier 1, Power 4 players and or if you play in the Big East. 70% of men's basketball players who entered the portal transferred down or did not find a home. 70% of those in Tier 1, which is the Big 12, ACC, Big 10, and also the SEC. Tier 2, the Atlantic 10, American Conference, Mountain West, and Western Coast Conference, which Gonzaga, of course, has been a part of. 74% of players who entered the portal transferred down or did not find a new home. And in Tier 3, which is everybody else, and of course there's 350-something teams in Division I men's basketball, 61% transferred down or did not find a new home. Remember last year during the tournament how we heard this, well, there's no Cinderellas or there's none of those, teams that are kind of making a push because they're all moving up. Here's the facts from last year. 16% of Tier 2 players moved up to Tier 1, and 7% of Tier 3 players moved up to Division 1.
To Tier 1.
Division, no.
He's D1 is Tier 3. Everyone else in D1.
Tier 2, of the players who went in the portal, only 16% moved up to to Tier 1. Tier 3 to Tier 1, 7%.
Yeah. You said Division 1. They're all Division 1
Okay,
numbers.
all right.
That's what I was correcting. Look,
you've been waiting to do that to me all day, too. I've noticed that. No, I'm kidding. There you go.
The good thing about the transfer portal is that you can find a home that's at your level. The bad thing is that they make these things called freshmen every year that come in and take a lot of your spots automatically. So and there's only 12 spots or so on a basketball team. And if you sign 2 to 3 freshmen, there's 2 to 3 spots that you don't have for transfers. Now, if you have a situation like Kansas or Baylor or Arkansas did last year, or where you have just an empty room, then there's an opportunity for you to jump up to a school like Baylor or Kansas. But a lot of the times they're going to try to make at least get players who have played, in that kind of level in the Power Four and Big East to come first before they start, going down to the other tiers. And this is also where you find out that maybe you're not cut out to be a Division I basketball player, and they don't find a home because they also don't want to go all the way down and then lose so much scholarship money that they can't afford to go to school. So it's something you really have to think about, especially considering these numbers you're in the portal. There's a 70% chance that you're not getting, a Power 4 Big East spot.
By the way, this was a survey, the AD advisors led by former Auburn athletic director Jay Jacobs. Since 2019, of course, a lot of things changed. What was it, in 20 or so when it came to the portal? You could transfer, but you had to be a grad student to play right away, but you could transfer. There have been, in men's basketball, Division I schools, 14,000 players. They say student athletes. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. 14,000 players who have entered the portal in the last 5.5 years. 14,000.
And that's in basketball.
Men's basketball, Division I, yes.
In basketball.
Yes,
which has,
not just basketball.
Yeah. I mean, again, they have more teams than football does at the Division I level, but less players in each team. So it probably all comes out in the wash. But yeah, that's unbelievable. The number, and then to know that most of them don't find a home.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I would say is you just, as an athlete, these things need to be you need to know these numbers going in. If you want to transfer, that's fine. But
here's the odds.
You better know that, if I'm going to leave Kansas State, the odds of me going to Houston or to Florida or to USC are a lot smaller than my chance of going to a Sun Belt school.
All right, here's one of the note. Of that 14,000, that is roughly 65% of all men's basketball players since 2019. 65% have transferred at least one time since 2019. And that's that number, 14,000 is 65% of those who played the game during that particular time. I don't know if those numbers were higher than I thought. I thought the division or Tier 2 to Tier 1 would be higher. But there's really not a lot of teams in Tier 2 because it's 4 conferences. So maybe 40, 45, or 50 teams. The Tier 3 moving up to to Tier 1 is very, very, very minimal. Just 7% of those who entered the portal. So a few notes and nuggets as we have trends. Again, Matt Brown, Extra Points, appreciate that information. I texted him because I didn't know about the the tier one and how many of them, and that's when he gave me the number. But the one figure that I didn't see is how many in tier one who transfer state tier one. That would be interesting. I would think there are a pretty big chunk of them. When we come back, Hall of Fame columnist John McClain with the NFL draft 2 days away.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
1, 2.
I'm in love with a man named Rudy. I'm okay with that. He knows exactly what I want. He keeps me coming back. He cooks breakfast, lunch, and dinner for me. Does the dishes too. I'm in love with a man named Rudy, last name Barbecue. It sure is easy to fall in love with Rudy's tasty oak smoked barbecue.
Next in line.
This is 365 Sports.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson, investing his time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
365 Sports, a couple of days away from the NFL draft. And John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist, who's covered a bunch of them, has dissected many of them. He joins us on 365 Sports. John, who is the name among the top 5 or 10 players that sends the draft into a chaos? Is there anybody in particular that either falls or somebody that people will move up too far to get that changes everything?
I think what could send the first round into chaos would be if the Browns or the Giants has been playing possum on Shedeur Sanders. There's a lot of people trashing Sanders right now anonymously, and it's amazing how many people do that. And it's increased. And yet there's a lot of people, Mel Kiper, Louis Riddick, Matt Miller, a lot of people, Bucky Brooks, who I respect a lot, and they have Shedeur Sanders rated ahead of Cam Ward, who's going to be the first overall pick. So I think if the Browns and the Giants took Sanders with the second or third pick, it would send the first round into total chaos.
Do you think that means that someone – like, say the Saints just drafts Jackson Dart at 9, even though that might be way higher than he should go?
Well, remember last year, Paul, Bo Nix was supposed to be a second-round pick. And I believe that Sean Payton at Denver took him number 12. I think that was where he took him. and he led them to the playoffs. So could Jackson Dart be the next Bo Nix? One of the things that always bothers me, besides anonymous quotes, as I call it, from gutless people, is the fact that scouts will say, well, I only have 12 first-round grades on players. And I'm like, so what? The Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio is full of players who didn't go in the first round or the second or the third round. There are players out there, and how they develop depends on starting with your owner. Is he a patient owner? Does he make knee-jerk decisions and screw up stability? And we see that all the time. A lot of times a player, especially a quarterback, that does not pan out, it's the fault of the owner, because he makes so many changes. And they get a new coach, new system, new quarterback coach. So I hope these guys go to stable situations. And there's not many, if any, more stable right now than Pittsburgh, where they've never had a losing season under Mike Tomlin. Remember when Ben Roethlisberger kept falling in 2004, and he dropped right into the Steelers' laps, and he helped them win 2 Super Bowls.
John, see where the Texans have been having some media interviews, C.J. Stroud yesterday, Petrie, and some others today. Anything of interest coming out of just everybody being at the podium and talking about the offseason?
Well, they started the off-season program, and at this point, coaches cannot be on the field with the players. But they brought them in for interviews. People are really excited, and for good reason. You know, they've gone 10-7 both years. They've blown out the Browns and the Chargers in the wild card round before losing on the road to the divisional round, and they've made a lot of moves in their offensive line, which needed it more than any position. I'll be surprised if they don't take an offensive lineman when they make their first pick on Thursday. They might trade up, they might trade down, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be an offensive lineman because they still have a lot of needs. I love general managers who always say we never draft for need when they always take fill a need with the best player at that need position.
John, is there a you mentioned Shedeur Sanders. Do you have a memory of just total BS draft story about someone who then wound up being great that sticks out to you?
Joe Montana in the third round in 1979 had that great comeback to beat University of Houston in the Cotton Bowl for Notre Dame, and that's the first time anybody really paid any attention to him, and yet he was still a third-round pick. And Bill Walsh, who helped turn him into a Hall of Fame quarterback, wanted Steve Dills from Stanford, and Minnesota took Steve Dills, and the 49ers got stuck with him. Johnny Unitas, one of the greatest quarterbacks in history, was an 18th round draft choice by Pittsburgh. The Steelers cut him because they didn't think he could play. Turned out he could play pretty well when he went to the Baltimore Colts, who had great coaching and great talent. You see this all the time, and it's amazing to me how many mistakes teams continue to make in the first round by taking players who don't pan out.
John, there's always the Ryan Leaf, Jamarcus Russell, Achilles Smith. Quarterbacks, of course, it seems like a lot of them are the ones that are thought of as bust, the biggest bust. Is there one? Would Lawrence Phillips count, even though he's no longer on this earth? Would he be a bust, or is that just a dumb decision?
Well, that was a dumb decision by the Rams because he was a punk and he was a jerk and he was a loser. He'd had all kinds of problems. Today, he wouldn't get drafted with all the issues he had, like dragging a woman downstairs by her hair. And yet the Rams picked him in the first round, and that wouldn't happen in today's climate and should, of course. I remember the Patriots drafted a defensive tackle from Nebraska, Christian Peter.
Mm-hmm.
And there were just awful stories about him, what he's done to women. And Robert Kraft's late wife said, you do not want that guy on this team. And they cut him. Then he ended up going, I think, to the Giants and having an okay career. But that was another thing I don't think would pass the test today because of all the scrutiny. And but I love to see guys like Tom Brady who never paid any attention. And you think about history, if Mo Lewis had not hit Drew Bledsoe and caused him to have a shoulder injury, giving Tom Brady a chance to play, where would Tom Brady have ended up? What would he have ended up doing?
That's a great – I mean, we don't know.
John, today the Cowboys gave a press conference in which Jerry Jones said that right now they're at work on some substantive trades. Is this something that people should wonder that they're actually doing, or is this Jerry just thinking, man, this press conference has been pretty damn boring. I'm going to spice this up.
Does that mean they're all in on the draft?
Yeah, exactly.
I think you should never say something like that because then people, the fans are going to get their hopes up. Media is going to get their hopes up. And then if you don't do it, it's going to be like the all-in quote that Jerry had. I think he just likes to stir the pot. He likes the attention, and he's excited. And if they make a trade, it's going to be up. It's going to be down. Whatever they do, people are going to have their doubts.
I have sometimes thought, although when they have traded down, it's worked out for him, that Jerry, when he's on the clock, and most teams take as much time as they possibly can, you should in case you get someone else who gives you more than anyone else has been offering you, if it's enough, that Jerry likes to trade down just because that's one more pick for him. And they got the 15 or how many minutes it is now, I forget. And then he gets to do that again like 6 or 8, 10 picks later.
And they show the war room over at the facility, and they get a lot of attention, as they should, because they're the most popular and the most hated team in the NFL. And, you know, the NFL would love for the Cowboys to be a Super Bowl contender every year because the ratings would be even better. But people, I kind of feel sorry for all the Cowboy fans I know because they're jaded now. And anytime Jerry says something or any move they make, they think the worst.
John, I saw a story about this, and then I saw you, I guess, retweeted something about it actually in the last day or two. But did you ever make it up to the old RFK Stadium in D.C.? And what are your thoughts on Josh Harris and company trying to maybe go back to their old home?
Yeah, my wife's not here, so she wouldn't hear me say that. That stadium was such a dump. And one thing that drove me crazy the first time I went there was no glass in the press box. And it was the championship game, I think, in 82. I can't remember. And everybody was freezing to death. It's like you're huddling together to stay warm. And they said, well, it's a baseball press box. And so you don't need glass in baseball, and they just don't fill it in. And people were killing to try to get seats that were warm back in the back of the press box. That was the only time I went there in the winter. And then I remember in 1991, they were playing the Oilers, and the Oilers had a field goal attempt to win the game, and the kicker choked it. My wife was there with her parents, and I'd gotten them tickets, and they were in the first row, covered by Redskins blankets, and they covered their faces because they knew the guy was going to make the 34-yard field goal. And then he missed it, and they were so excited. And I was happy for them because they just knew that the Oilers were going to win that game. And they lost it by 3.
And was that, you said 91?
I think it was 91 when they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Do you remember that game? Ian Halfield missed the field goal for the Texans, and Chip Lowmiller won it on a field goal by the Oilers. And at that point, they were both the best teams in their conferences. It was a hell of a game.
Oh, yeah, that's the year the year that Mark Rippon was an MVP, and they ended up winning it all against Buffalo when the Bills were in the middle of that early slide to lose 4 straight Super Bowl championships. Who does Ashton Genty most remind you of, John, of players that – is it Barry Sanders? Is it Gale Sayers? Who is it?
Walter Payton, because he let's see, I just read this. He averaged 4.6 yards after contact. And if you multiply that times his carries, would have over 1,000 yards after contact. And I watched him, and people goes, well, the conference wasn't very good. He killed Oregon, and he's a great kid, too. I think Jacksonville could take him at 5. Most people have him ticketed to the Raiders at 6. If Cherry's going to do a substantial trade, it ought to be up with one of those teams so he can get Ashton Genty, who played high school football there at their facility. And I think it would be great for the Cowboys to get him, because a running back like him, he's also a good receiver, and he is a military kid who is a great guy. You know, he can catch, he can run, he can block, and he can take a lot of pressure off a quarterback and a defense.
Yeah, John, that's the thing. They're probably not going to move up. They don't do that that often. But if this was ever the time, I mean, go up and get him. I mean, because that's the one thing they've really been missing for the last few years for Dak Prescott, is that running game to take the pressure off him. It's like they forgot his best years were when Zeke Elliott was also having his best years.
Well, maybe that's what they'll do. But anytime Jerry says something like that, the teams he's talking to automatically know. Well, he said it publicly, so that puts him under more pressure. So we want a better pick or more picks.
Yeah, you just can't help himself, can he, John?
No.
John, it's fun. The draft, everyone gets to add to their roster. We'll see what happens. Who knows? Those in the first round might turn out to be Hall of Famers. But like you said, many in the mid to late rounds have turned out to be Hall of Famers, even some that were undrafted too. We appreciate your time, my friend. Thank you so much as always.
Second Bears.
John McClain, NFL columnist, Hall of Famer, NFL columnist with us on Tuesdays in the 5 o'clock hour. When we come back, Paul Catalina, his top 5. We also look at a couple of the polls that Andrew put up today. What were the results? What did you say? That's next. This is 365 Sports.
Escape into fitness with the Schwinn IC4 bike, providing a premium, heart-pumping indoor cycling experience that combines digital connectivity with superior Schwinn quality. The IC4's smooth, quiet ride features magnetic resistance with 100 micro-adjustable resistance levels, an intuitive resistance knob, a beautiful backlit LCD display, adjustable race-style seat, dual-link pedals with toe cages, and a pair of 3-pound dumbbells with easy-reach cradles. Place your phone or tablet on the media rack and keep them charged with the IC4's convenient USB charging station, extra-large dipped handlebars for premium grip, and dual water bottle holders for staying hydrated. The Schwinn IC4 comes with a slim, comfortable, Bluetooth-enabled heart rate armband that continuously monitors heart rate to help you stay within your target zone. But the best part about the IC4 is premium digital connectivity. Digitally immerse yourself in a world of virtual races, exotic locales, and stunning trails from around the globe. With connectivity to cycling and coaching apps like Peloton, Explore the World, and Zwift, with the Schwinn IC4 bike, you can ride with Peloton at a fraction of the price. Don't limit yourself to one digital experience. Pedal through dozens of scenic destinations, controlling your pace by speeding up or slowing down. Fitness was never meant to be put in a box, and neither were you. Escape the everyday with the Schwinn IC4 bike, your ticket to a life well lived.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Ticket Club. Forget the fees, just big savings. Click the link in the description to find out more.
Welcome in. We continue Paul's second annual mock draft, and just wait until tomorrow. You get a couple extra spots in the top 5. Bonus top 5. Garrett is more excited than I've ever seen him. Nothing. He said nothing. He said nothing. Don't say anything now. It's too late. It's too late. You've already hurt my feelings. Number 21. I changed this one. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to draft Jackson Dart from Ole Miss. I really do. Now, look, there's a chance he might even go as high as 9th if the other two quarterbacks are off the board and the Saints really like him. But the Steelers don't have a quarterback right now. And it could be Aaron Rodgers. It could not be. Depends on whatever the giant mushroom person that comes to him in a vision will tell him to do later. So instead of waiting for that next hit of peyote for Aaron Rodgers, they draft their quarterback of the future in Jackson Dart and roll the dice here. A little bit risky, but he's a fun player. And, you know, what do they have to lose? Number 22, the Chargers. Colston Loveland, tight end, Michigan. Jim Harbaugh needs a tight end. He knows this one. This might be the easiest pick he's ever going to make. I need a tight end. I need a good one who knows the kind of offense I like to run and can put up with me and my weird stuff. I introduce you to Colston Loveland, a guy you already know and is a first-round talent at tight end. He is going to reunite with his college coach who he helped win a national title. Number 23, the Green Bay Packers, they need a cornerback. The best one on the board is Jahdae Barron. He can play in the slot. He can play outside. He can play safety. He will fit well in Green Bay. They will love him there. He's a bulldog. He loves the game. He's going to do great in Green Bay if they do take him. Number 24, Nick Emanwari off the board. The guy who actually had the longer, more productive career. It didn't just start flashing lately. Malachi Starks from Georgia. Super athletic, sees the field in a ton of different ways. Plug-and-play starter year one. Absolutely a great, great player who played for Kirby Smart. I love Malachi Starks. If your team winds up with him, especially if you're the Vikings like I'm predicting here, that is a great fit. Number 25, and this is the last one for today. I know you're sad. The Houston Texans draft Josh Simmons, offensive tackle from Ohio State. They got to get younger on the offensive line. And if you're wondering, hey, is Josh Simmons a dog? Yeah, that's a pretty good reason right there. I'm not sure if you can completely see that gif, but he is coming around, protecting his quarterback and punishing the defender there so that they can play early on. They've made a lot of investment in the offensive line through free agency, but those guys won't be there long. This guy, 5 years with Josh Simmons, a nice pick for the Texans. That's going to do it for picks 21 to 25. Tomorrow, we finish out the whole thing. This is 365 Sports. Smokey, please let us leave.
Not yet. Not yet, but thank you, Paul. This is the time we'll go over a couple of the polls that Andrew has put up for today. One we started off with, the top defensive lineman in the draft, that Mason Graham, Michigan, had more than everybody else combined. Mikael Williams, Nolan, and Kenneth Grant. 77 votes. Thank you very much for doing that. Graham with a runaway winner in that one. Also, the other, who's the most deserving? I don't like deserving's okay. Who's the most deserving of a championship in the NBA playoffs? Luka, Brunson, Butler, and man, is Gilgeous-Alexander fantastic with Oklahoma City.
9% for Shea.
He's maybe the best player in the NBA. Emory, you didn't go in there and tidy up those numbers with your ability to get that done.
Hey, by the way, we were talking about Kevin Durant on the triple option the other day, and Emory said a bad word about Kevin Durant.
Well, he left him. He's like all the other renegades. Harden, Durant, Westbrook.
I would buy Luka on this if it wasn't the Lakers. Like, he's now like, I hope maybe one day he wins a title, but I never want the Lakers to win. I love Jalen Brunson and the way he plays.
Oh, what do you know? Another former Mavericks player.
Yeah. That would have been Mark Cuban. But see, here's the difference between Mark Cuban and Nico Harrison. Mark Cuban has spoken very openly about how he flubbed that.
Yeah,
I mean, they flubbed it to an extent, but also people are kind of revisionist history that, man, they're acting like the Jalen Brunson that plays for New York was the guy that wasn't getting what he wanted. It was the Jalen Brunson before he proved that he was that guy that they would have had to have overpaid to begin with. People, if they would have paid him the money they would have kept in there, people would have been like, you're paying him that much money? Like, that's insane. Because he wasn't that dude then. Yeah. And now, in hindsight, it looks terrible because you had both of them and now you have none of them.
Absolutely.
But that wasn't, I mean, it's nowhere close to it's nothing in the same universe as the Luka trade. And it was kind of understandable, but it's just an easy thing to poke fun at them for.
But like Mark Cuban's been very, like, I've heard him talk about how he's like, well, when we came to that crossroads, he kind of dug in more than he probably should have, and then didn't because he genuinely wanted to keep him. And
it's not like he felt unwanted. The Mavericks would like to have kept him.
His dad works for the Knicks. It's
Jimmy Butler's a guy that I covered when he was at Tyler Junior College. Like him, he's been a kind of a pain in the ass for Miami most recently. He ends up forcing his way out, and right now the Warriors and Rockets are 1-0 Golden State with the lead. I don't know if they've played game 2 yet. I don't think they have. Thank you, Andrew, for putting both of those up. I'm trying to think of somebody else most deserving or who has earned a championship but doesn't have one. Not sure who else that might be. All right, Emory, thank you. Andrew, thank you. Also, thank you to Garrett Ross and our great sponsors, those of you today who have been rolling in what is, of course, the chat room. Thank you, everyone that sends us suggestions, DMs, and much more. We'll be back again tomorrow at 3. Are you on tomorrow with Triple Option?
No, we're not. We're making some changes with that show I need to tell you about. So
it would be nice. Maybe not my business, but thank you. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great night. Don't forget 365 Sports tonight, 10:30 on the local CW. See you then.